Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we are starting this right now. So, what is the purpose of this? The first instance of this earlier this morning was analyzing game reviews. And now we're analyzing some more. So I had to take a nap because I was so exhausted. But I just had a heck of a Twitter war. Oh, hello.
Hey man, I mean, bloody
Yeah, there.
couldn't figure it out, man. I can't stand
Hey,
you.
Abby, did you see what I got up to earlier?
What?
On Twitter, I had a Twitter war
With who?
with Pixie Jenny.
Oh, that's not hard to do.
Oh no, it was extended though. It was like 3.5 hours.
She has no life.
Well, she gave it her all, and you know what? I like a lot of people give her shit and everything, but she does bring up some good points sometimes.
Yeah, well, you know what they say, a broken clock is right twice a day.
Yeah, I guess.
This is the same person that fucking wants religion. People need religion to be guided. It's like, now you're starting to sound like a zealot.
Actually, you know what's funny? David S. Gallant jumped in too and said, "Careful, Jenny. Thoughtful Sot might call you at 10:30 at night and write a hit piece on you." So I reply back, or David S. Gallant might try and deny you something you paid for simply because you disagree. He didn't reply back after that.
Nah, he's got nothing. He knows he's got nothing. He's just doing it so that he gets publicity. Dude's a fraud. His game looks like something a 5-year-old would do in their spare time. Oh, but it's such a thoughtful and creative game. It's like, yeah, nah. You got fired for making that piece of shit. Anyway. Now, when you messaged me before, I was in bed. It was like 20 past 1. I was like, oh, shit.
Get used to these time differences in certain time zones for a lot of people.
Well, what's the time now, so I know the time difference in Canada?
Here.
Because it's 11 o'clock here.
Alright. Well, you get to eat lunch in a couple minutes. I gotta, play some Massive Chalice later.
Oh, jeez. Right.
Alright, 1 second. Waiting on a few people. I just sent a few more invites. We discuss game reviews.
I'll put this up on Pikachu in action.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Ah, cool.
Unless you want to do it.
No, you do it, man. It's your stream.
Alright. If you want in, leave a comment. Alright. So, actually, I tried this earlier today, and what I did was I read the Tropico 5 review, which was hilarious. I mean, like, if you ever tried to read that thing all the way through, it's absolutely stunningly awful. I read the Electronic Gaming Monthly review of Aliens Colonial Marines. After that, that was also, it's the worst review ever written.
Ever? I'm pretty sure I could find some pretty bad ones.
Well, if you can find the one, I haven't seen it. But, yeah.
You can always go after the SimCity ones. They're pretty bad.
Yeah, actually, one of the points of argument I had with Pixie Jenny was, she said this point, so you want critics to predict the future now? And I was like, no, I just want them to do their job. Um,
Man, I can't stand arguing with her because she always argues in bad faith. She's not there to be convinced. She's there to just be
well,
a.
I won't necessarily say so. I mean, we did end up agreeing on a few things about game reviews. So, like,
Yeah.
maybe it's just because she uses a lot of circular arguments, which I saw. But at the same time, some legitimate points are always in there somewhere.
Once again, broken clock.
I
That's the
guess.
second time she's right. What, it's more people anyway.
Actually, the Twitter war is still going on because now Ralph Retort and other people are jumping on this stream on that.
Leave it now. Leave it. Don't touch. As soon as Ralph gets involved, just don't fucking touch.
Actually, he sent me a tweet saying, "Sucking up to Pixie while subtweeting a trash on me, lol. Sad look, my friend." And that was directed at me. Because Pixie Jenny said, similar to the Ralph Retort, unethical as fuck, and I replied to that tweet by her by saying, yes, I disagree with Ralph's methods. That's all I said. But I do disagree with Ralph's methods.
Yeah, he sometimes he jumps the gun and then it bites him in the ass. He's got to slow down a little bit. He's got to think before he puts anything up on his website. But at the same time, this is the funniest shit. Sometimes he jumps the gun, but he still manages to piss the other side off really badly, and it always ends up working in his favor. So
Yeah, I just think he focuses a bit too much on character assassination more than any of the actual issues, but that's just me. He knows I disagree with him. If anything, I think that's healthy because disagreements can foster discussion sometimes. If he somehow ends up listening to this, Ralph Retort, I disagree with you, but I respect you at the same time, and that's not sucking up. That's literal. Just a statement.
I mean, like he's written some pretty good articles, man. I've had a good laugh at half of them, so I'll give him that. But yeah, aside from Twitter wars, which I think they're pretty much fruitless for the most part. Because a lot of people just tend to come in with their minds made up, and then they just start screaming at each other. It's like nothing's getting done. There's no productivity in these tweets. Considering how many of them are using that bloody block list.
Actually, funny thing, near the end of the Twitter war, which was like in the last half an hour or something, 5 other antis at least came in and tried to argue against me. And me and Pixie, we tried to end the war on amicable terms because we ended up agreeing on a few things and disagreeing on others. But then they jumped in and, well, kept it continuing. Eventually she gave up because they were... She was like, fuck it, I'm done.
Hey, Andrew. Do you want to test your mic and everything?
Hey, can you hear me? Yes?
Yep, we can.
Okay. Cool. It's my first time doing anything like this, so...
Yeah. Last time I had a stream, it was a sausage fest, so I felt it was my duty to invite, someone else on board.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
It's good to have more people, because otherwise we sort of just go in circles when there's only 2 people here. I was on Foxy Gone's stream the other night as well, and it was like, he told people to come in and message him on Skype, and no one did it, so, yeah.
Yeah, I've been invited to some streams or Skype sessions, and usually it's when I have to do something, but I figured I had no reason to not do it now, so I wasn't going to be a dick.
Nah, it's fine. I'm supposed to go out in an hour, but I can push that back. The place I'm going to doesn't close for another 10 hours anyway, so...
Nice.
Also, I just thought I'd tell you this. When I started my Twitter account, the vice president of IBM started following me.
Nice. Right when you started. That's a nice motivational boost.
Maybe he's stalking you.
His name's Enrico Cereda. I think I pronounced that right.
Okay.
He's not following me anymore, but I just thought it was funny that someone from IBM started following me.
Nice.
I thought I made it in the world. Alrighty.
You can provide witness to this, right, Andromeda, about the Twitter war I had earlier?
With...
Pixie Jenny?
No, funny story, if if users have blocked me with the new block feature going on, I'm testing something out. I'm blocking them back. Because what that does is, because people notify me if people mention me. So what that does is, if I see that these people are mentioning me, I know that they're actively searching me and then trying to utilize my tweets or whatnot in their whatever narrative they're using. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, well, but you're trying to express that you're using this block feature to try and avoid me, yet you're coming out there and using my tweets, you know, and seeking them out. So really, what's the point? And are you really being truthful in your intentions? And there's already been a few that I've been notified of this thing, and you know, I even contacted, because I'm vindictive like that, I even contacted Twitter and I tell them, you know, this person I have blocked has done this or that, and I'm not going to name any names, but one of the people that I contacted Twitter about got an email, and they didn't say it was regarding this, but they did post the email. They got an email from Twitter basically saying, please stop, you know, not harassing but antagonizing this person. But I guess it's just kind of this stupid little warfare going on back and forth. So Pixie Jenny's one of them that blocked me, and I blocked her back. So I don't see any of her stuff. And I guess in a way that's kind of a benefit. What was she arguing with you about?
Initially, it was game reviews, and then it devolved into the same argument. Eventually, it devolved into the same argument that we're used to from these people.
The usual talking points?
Yes. She actually she did point out something that did kind of me a tiny bit. Do you know about Chobitcoin?
Yeah, that's their ammo right now. That's everybody's ammo. So
it's not gonna work. She's doing a good job trolling the shit out of them, and she's doing the exact same thing Mike is doing, and they latch onto it, and they're like, look at the crazy things this person's saying. It's like, yeah, you guys are just giving her attention. That's exactly what she wants.
Right.
Yeah, well, she did show me 2 tweets that were kind of troubling, but at the end of the day, I just wrote off as she was trying to distance herself from what she perceived as a mentally ill person, and that's all I read about it. She tried to, Pixie Jenny tried to make me read it as she threatened to kill someone.
Yeah, yesterday, I forget who the person is. Yesterday, someone tried to attach or associate Chobitcoin with me, and I sat there and I'm like, no, you're wrong. They're like, oh, you tweeted at me about Chobitcoin to defend Gamergate against transphobia. I'm like, no, I didn't. I don't mention Chobitcoin against people to try and support anything. What are you talking about? And it was just their way of trying to insert what everybody's trying to insert now, using Chobitcoin as an example of Gamergate being hateful. So.
Yeah.
They can't keep track of what we're hateful about, though. It's like, first we didn't like women, now it's we don't like trans people, now it's we don't like whatever, insert anything in here. And it's just like, once again, she's doing it to piss them off. And it's working, so she's not going to stop. That's what she thrives on.
Well, I actually did get her to agree with me on something. It's that when I said that GG, you can't just paint everyone with the same brush in GG sometimes. For a split second, she agreed with me, and then she reverted. But I think I cracked the armor a tiny bit. That was funny.
Nice. Yeah, she was recently featured in an article where it was supposedly academics discussing Gamergate. And I'm like, wait a second, you featured Pixie Jenny as an academic discussing Gamergate? I'm like, okay, I'm already not reading this. But,
Let's not forget, she's posted published her journal in Jezebel, her study. It doesn't count.
Yeah, it's the same thing as that Jennifer Holloway chick who published her Gamergate is a hate group because people sent me mean messages on my survey, kind of thing. Same place where she published that, and I actually
she didn't send it to herself. Honestly,
full disclosure here. At the last PAX Prime, I went to Jennifer Holloway's panel, "Sexism in Gaming," and she actually made a lot of good points. But my respect for her seriously dropped when she released that article because the research wasn't done.
Well, you know, funny thing about it all is I really do think Gamergate supporters and those that are on opposition, funny enough, I think if we try and excuse and forget about the extremes of both, like their views, extreme views, the two of the sides would actually agree on a lot of things. I mean, Gamergate supporters don't necessarily think that there isn't sexism in the industry. Yeah, it exists. Of course it exists. Everybody
It
knows
exists
that.
everywhere. It's not
Right,
exclusive
not just
to
in the gaming
gaming.
industry. Yeah, and yeah, sure, misogyny exists. Yeah, sure, these things that they're arguing about exist. But just the same, you know, I know because I've heard them talk about it, especially today. SRH Butts circular argument lady, she was even mentioning today that she also recognizes there's corruption in the gaming industry. She recognizes that there's journalists that are doing shit that they shouldn't be doing, unethical behavior, and really it's just about everybody's just so angry with each other for saying really dumb things that lying, or just not telling truths, I guess, sometimes, that nobody wants to agree with each other on anything. And so long as we have some people, I won't name names, so long as we have some people trying to make Gamergate about themselves, whether it be, that they're harassing them all the time, or whether it be that, making money off of Gamergate or whatever else, so long as we have these people present, it's going to continue to be an angry, everybody's angry with each other. And nobody's going to agree on anything.
Yeah. So, the purpose of this stream, and I started it because I'm looking to bounce a lot of ideas off a lot of people, is we're going to be reading some of the really terribly written game reviews over the past couple of years. The infamous ones will be discussed, Tropico 5.
Okay.
It's always fun to read through. I read it through in a stream earlier today when no one joined, so I was sad and alone. But it was fun. It was fun. The guy is an idiot who wrote that. It's literally, yeah, it's terrible. And then we have the Aliens Colonial Marines review, obviously. Bayonetta 2 review. I heard mentions of a Dragon's Crown review that was apparently terrible, so I'm searching that up.
Yeah, Jason Schreier's.
Yeah,
I think it's from Kotaku, and there's one from Polygon as well. That's the thing, though, with Dragon Age, I don't see it as being sexist at all. I mean, you've got an Amazon in a bikini, but have a look at what she looks like.
Mm-hmm.
There's barely any feminine, what you would consider the typical feminine body shape. She's pretty much a muscle-bound bodybuilder with a bikini. She looks like she's going to a bodybuilding contest, not going to a castle or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't see why he had such a massive problem with it. And I'm beginning to think that a lot of these people are just very, very insecure about not only their own sexuality but other people's. Like they're very how would you say it? Like very afraid of women. Women that are very confident.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the main things I had in the argument with Pixie Jenny today, she actually brought up a link to some articles and stuff, but I did some research on the side and came up against this excellent rebuttal against Polygon's review of Dragon's Crown, and basically the person just said, I'm actually going to drag that up right now just so I can read from it, but there was a lot of good things that came from that discussion, and apparently one of the things Auntie is still up about is reviews are just opinions, man, and you can't be objective in a game review. And my retort to that,
Of course you can be.
But my retort to that was, you can at least strive to be objective.
Right, or at least disclose that. Listen, I'm being a little subjective here because you recognize when you're being, a little biased in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's more or less you strive for objectivity.
Yeah, people can be self-aware. I mean, this whole idea that people can't be self-aware is just mind-numbing.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like you ask journalists for disclosure, and Arthur Chu in that infamous Al Jazeera Gamergate debate, he basically said, "What does every article ever written have to be this personal biography of someone's connections to people?" It's like no. If all we ask is if you have a relationship that will unduly influence your reporting or your review of a game, just disclose it. If you can't recuse yourself, just disclose it. That's all we ask. It takes 5 seconds to write, listen, I am in so-and-so relationship with so-and-so. They worked on this game. My reporting may be influenced.
And the common argument I see is people are like, oh, well, how much do you have to disclose? What if you just know them, passively? And I sit here and I'm like, listen, if you have any type of doubt that there might be any sort of concern over your relations with somebody, just disclose it. What does it hurt? Just say it. People will be happier that you mentioned it.
But they don't want to, because if they disclose the fact that the person that they're reviewing is a friend of theirs, they're not going. They think that people will go, yeah, I'm not touching this, because there is obviously even if you disclose your conflict of interest, you're immediately saying my opinion is still going to be biased. So even if you say that you've got this is my friend, the review is still going to be not as objective as it should be. I think that if you are a friend of someone, you yourself need to recuse yourself from the review. You need to hand it off to either somebody else in the company, or you give it to a freelancer, and then they post it up on your website.
Mm-hmm.
Or even the way I see it is, if you are going to be providing a very thorough review, you've played this game thoroughly, you have some very strong opinions about it, and you think that it's going to be well met, like people are going to be like, okay, this person really took the time to review this game. Yeah, they're going to see the bias. Yeah, they're going to take it into account. But the fact that you provided such a, really thought out, lengthy review on a game that covers every single aspect of the game, that's what's going to matter, So.
Yeah, they did it with IGN though. When they were reviewing that game that Jessica Chobot worked on, they hired a freelancer to come and write the review for them. And the guy gave it like a 5.8, whatever the hell that means. But that was a fair thing to do. And even though IGN have employed, or still employed, some rather less than trustworthy people, they're at least making an attempt to seem like they care about ethics and about doing the right thing. Which is strange, because this is bloody IGN we're talking about, who in the past used to make fun of the fact that everyone knew they were corrupt. So we live in a very strange world at the moment.
Yeah, it's definitely complicated. Basically, the gist of Pixie Jenny's argument that I had with her about game reviews is like she just kept reiterating that objectivity is impossible, and I recognize that. Like pure objectivity that some Gamergaters I see want is literally impossible. But at the same time, when I said strive for objectivity, some antis snark back, oh, that's just what someone snarks at game reviewers and critics when they say what they want in game reviews, and it's like, oh, for God's sakes. And they ask me, point me to some objective game reviews. I'm like, there are none.
No, because no one's done them. But the thing is, you can do objective game reviews. It just means that you won't have a review that covers every single little thing. All you would have to do is talk about, does the game work? Are there any bugs? Etc. Things like that. And you could release a review like that. It's not as helpful as a slightly subjective review. But what they're doing, what their reviews are, is so far gone from being objective that you wouldn't really consider them reviews. They're just talking points. Then I wouldn't even consider it a review at all. Because you need to maintain some level of objectivity. You need to be able to say, this game has bugs, there are issues with the gameplay, this game crashes a lot, there's something, options are lacking, which is very important. I mean,
but Gamergater,
oh, no, Gamergater. Oh.
Actually, but Gamergater, it's not the critic's fault if you read their review and you play the game and something happens that's technical, because the critic it's not the critic's job to advocate for the consumer.
Have you got any of those reviews that you can put in the chat?
Oh yes. I shall link. This should be fun.
Right, sweet.
So the Tropical 5
Nintendo
review.
General.
Hey, how's it going?
Good mate. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm glad this week in Gamergate got through a lot of infighting, a lot of the E-drama that happened, but, relatively speaking, I'm doing well. Christmas is soon, so that's always nice.
Yeah.
All Gamergate has to do is make it through Christmas, and then we are on a roll.
Then smooth sailing.
Yeah, in all
Yeah.
seriousness, that's really it. I mean, if it holds on during the holidays when a lot of people are extremely busy, and I think a lot of the infighting has really shown the resilience, because when you have someone as big, sadly, as big as King of Pole is, basically outright come and say, or imply directly and say, oh, well, without me, said person, who's going to be pushing the news? And I think the best comment back was Alejandro said, everybody else. I think that's probably the best comment and the best show of resilience that Gamergate has, is that you kill one of us, or one of us decides to leave, like IA did, or someone becomes, really something else. We continue to pursue that perfect review of what you guys are talking about. It's a never-ending pursuit. It's never going to be there. Something purely objective is not the perfect review because it needs to have a personal touch. I think Total Biscuit actually has a personal touch, and he admits it. And that's the thing that Gamergaters really want. It's a disclaimer. It's a footnote at the bottom that's at least 3 or 4 sentences long saying, this is my opinion based on this and this and this. Outside of technical aspects of the game, this is exactly my opinion of it, and this is what it is. If you don't like it, obviously find someone else to review the game. And I think you brought on a really good point. I think that critics are extremely responsible inherently to announce the major technical flaws, because it's their job to be the watchdog, the initial wall, the initial watchdog for the consumer. And then from there on, it's the consumer's job to watchdog the critic, to make sure that there's no collusion, no corruption. I think that's the perfect balance that everyone's looking for. It's kind of a who watches the Watchmen thing. The Watchmen can do their job. Absolutely, they should be doing their job. But on the other hand, we should watch them and make sure and hold their feet to the fire and say, listen, we found out that you got this game for free. Did that influence your opinion? And if we find that did, that person needs to be under scrutiny.
Mm-hmm. One of the common arguments leveled against gaming critics is that it's not their job actually to be consumer advocates. But what I retort back is, yes, the job of a critic or a reviewer used to be different historically. It didn't used to be consumer advocates, but that the nature of that profession has evolved to the modern day where they're responsible for billions and billions and billions of dollars of revenue. Now, some interesting studies have shown that people don't actually use game reviews in their purchase decisions, but at the same time, do we really know the answer to that? So I think game reviews are still important, and therefore the critics should be a bit aware of their responsibilities to the gaming public and stuff, especially when the score they give is responsible for bonuses that certain developers get.
Absolutely. I think the big pattern that's become a huge hit against gaming journalism is that sites like Kotaku initially was, and what really the monster it grew into, became this political forefront, this political agenda pushing, machine really, that became clickbait. And everyone saw that model worked, so they replicated it. They said, oh, we're going to do what they do. And then Polygon did their own spin on it, and so on and so forth, and it just became an agenda pushing thing. Now, what's sad is, if you go back and look at some old gaming magazines, obviously you have the people who just play the demo, you have the people who just skim by, but you have people who actually put their heart into it. But then they realize that doesn't sell as well as me facilitating and agreeing and backing up someone's opinion, no matter how crazy it is, because everyone wants to hear their opinion backed up. And that's what's sad, is gaming journalism has become that, and in some games have become that, and that's what's really sad to me. I mean, for instance, the Far Cry 4 debacle. Far Cry 4 did not get as much attention off of the preliminary look until the poster came out, and then the shitstorm hit the fan. Oh, there's a white man oppressing, a tribal, someone who, is actually happens to be the same race as that person. And it became a measure of is it either getting attention because it offended someone, or is it getting attention because it agrees with our political agenda? There was no gray matter of, oh, well, here we have a game that, so on and so on this, and then here's the technical aspects. That whole model was just thrown out the window.
Yeah.
And I think you're absolutely right. Eventually, it evolved into critics actually became important. And I know that sounds really harsh to critics, but with the forum of YouTube, the forum of the Fifth Estate, the internet and all that, critical reviews became very, very important because this mass amount of games got pushed out into the stream. So no longer was it 5 or 6, cartridges that were out there, and you had to pick from, that's 20%, success rate, even if just 1 out of 5 is good. So now, with how many games are being pushed out and how many bad games are being pushed out, they're so much more important than they ever used to be.
I don't know how people feel about this idea, but as far as I always thought it's not such a bad idea necessarily. If somebody wants to discuss gender politics or feminist aspects or whatever else that's unrelated really to the gameplay itself, they want to discuss that and rate that, I really have no problem with that. But do it separately from the actual gameplay rating or the actual rating that you're supposed to be focusing on. I forgot which site it was that was shared a while ago of like it's a Christian website that they
CCJ.
Yeah, they rated the game, and that was the main rating, and then they had a separate section for Christians that worry about the moral aspects, about, religious connotations within the game and so on, and they rate that. And I was totally cool with that, because you know what? You have that aspect if people want to pay attention to it, but you have the main rating, which matters,
Yeah.
I really don't have a problem with that.
Yeah. I just plugged in a better mic, so hopefully this is better on your guys' ears. But it's a complicated issue. I mean, I'm one of those people who actually believes in scores, or at least categories.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel that the length of modern gaming reviews doesn't allow for much more for the context that's needed to justify those scores. So the gaming reviewers are actually trapped in a corner of their own making, right? Because people will not read long reviews. The data is there. So they have to squeeze in what they feel is important, and sometimes what they feel is important is unduly important to a lot of their readers. Though some readers will agree with their viewpoints, though. Let's not conflate. Let's not forget that a lot of people agree with their bent on game reviews right now. So it's complicated. I think there's more to it than just saying, well, scores are bad, or you shouldn't just do cultural critique in a review and rate it on that. There's a lot more going on here, and the article I'm going to be writing, or it may be a series of articles, I don't know, it depends on what I dig up, but it'll try and explore the complications of this whole thing, because there's no black and white answer to this.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the problem is that the models that ethically were sound, because I'm sorry, ma'am, I don't know your name, but what she's saying is absolutely right. If someone wants to talk about those issues, I don't mean to imply that you can't. What I'm trying to say is that you need to put a disclaimer or something that when I start reading your review, I don't look at it as its fact, and I don't get sucked into something on clickbait and get sucked into an agenda-pushing article. Like, there was an article that I reviewed, and it had to deal with Castlevania Lords of Shadow 2, and it dealt with a scene that established that Dracula in this form is going to be an extreme version of himself. He's going to be the monster he always was. Well, it starts talking about rape instead of the actual scene itself, and it becomes this mishmash of ugly, spin. And, we already have enough of that in the mainstream media. I mean, if you guys really just want spin, turn on Fox News, CNN, MSNBC. I really thought initially when I started, looking at game reviews on the internet, especially with Jim Sterling, how honest these people are. I was like, wow, Total Biscuit, Jim Sterling, they have it right on the money. Sometimes Angry Joe. It was just like, wow, these guys are being as honest as they can, and because they're being supported directly by the consumer, there's no in-between. There's basically no lobbyist for their government. There's no one trying to get in and wiggle their way in to push someone one way or the other. But then, to me, indirectly, this extreme version of social justice, because I don't want to sound like I'm not for social justice. I am, but it's become such an extreme form, much like feminism is today, compared to what Christina Hoff Sommers views as feminism. It's crazy how it indirectly weaved itself into a lot of these major publications. And what's really sad is we've lost that great model. Scores or no scores, it's become, how much money are you giving me? Are you giving me the game for free? Am I associating with EA? Am I associating with Activision? Who do I want to push out in there? And it's become a power-hungry fest of you get bottlenecked by me if I want you to get bottlenecked by me because I don't agree with you. And that's what's sad. Like, right now, say Mark wanted to go in and walk in at EA, and he was wearing a shirt that said #Gamergate I support, or something that simple. How fast do you think they would push him out of the building to be like, okay, we can't just, we can't have you here? But on the extreme, other side of it, say Mark is like post-trans or something like that, and he says, I'm against Gamergate, he would have a lot more levity in that situation. And that's what's sad, is it becomes what you are, not who you are and what you stand for.
It's about the labels that they can apply to you instead of the individual behind those labels, and that's a big problem with what I see as this. Even the term social justice to me is kind of troubling. It's very. It sounds authoritarian. The moment you say social justice, you start implying that you are on the side of right regardless of what you do, because a lot of these people that are against Gamergate have this kick the dog mentality. They can do whatever they want because they're doing it in the name of justice. And that's what I have a problem with. I'd prefer it if people understand that it's just basic human equality that we're after, not justice. I mean, justice is also subjective. People have different opinions about what justice is.
Well, let's not forget, too, a major part of why all this is playing out the way it is because certain people, or, entities, mainstream media, gave a platform for these people. If they wouldn't have given them a platform like they did at the start of Gamergate, it would have completely played out differently. There were so many devs that said that they were going to talk about Gamergate, they were really into Gamergate, and they're like, listen, we noticed that this is how it turned because of how mainstream media covered it, and we couldn't be associated with it anymore, so we didn't talk about it. And that's a big problem. These social justice warriors and modern day feminists, I mean, they've been a problem for years now, and the fact that MSN gave them this huge platform when discussing Gamergate is what really painted Gamergate in such a nasty light that really it didn't deserve at all.
Just because you're anti-feminist does not mean you're a misogynist too. That they seem to confuse the terms sometimes. It's like I'm against the feminist methods of gaining equality. Like Monday Matt, he's anti-feminist, and would you say he's a hater of women? I don't necessarily think so. I don't know the guy, but
doesn't he consider himself egalitarian though?
Yeah. So you're wondering what the hell's going through these people's heads some of the times. It's like, oh, you hate feminism. You're a misogynist. No, we just disagree on the methods of equality, my friend.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is their PR is so good at this point that really that's their main focus. It's not necessarily their core message, because I think inherently the new version of feminism is very flawed at its core. They can't push the real agenda there because it's not equality. We're all here for equality. Gamergate's here for ethics, equality, and really announcing the acceptance of gamer and announcing that it's still alive. That, that title is as soon as you pick up a controller, as soon as you play whatever game, you're in. Like, it doesn't matter. It's not who cares and who doesn't care. There's no real measure to it. It's more of a matter of we accept all as long as you realize that this is an art form that is intended to be respected. Now, whether or not you respect it's your choice, but it means something to a lot of people. And to me, it's the sheer arrogance. And Saul, you brought this up last stream, and I think you hit the nail right on the head. It's the sheer arrogance of these people that's disconcerting. It's that they can speak down to their own consumers or down to their own followers and still expect no repercussions. It's as if that you're talking to a deity with them. And I say that in all sincerity. I mean, look at Chu. I mean, that guy thinks whatever comes out of his mouth is fact. When he had the Pac-Man interview, he turned around and every chance he got, he would say, well, you're giving a platform to harassers. You don't do that. You're giving a platform to harassers. You don't do that. And really, he's just giving something that's fair. And I mean, Pac-Man's more anti-Gamergate than he is Gamergate. And, that's really extremely fair of him just to give a voice to those who have been unheard. And I think Jessica brought up a great point. Or Jennifer, sorry about that. Jennifer brought up a great point that we've been painted in such a bad light because of this PR campaign. And that's really what it is. I mean, the anti-Gamergate, it's not arguing the facts. It's a PR campaign. And with Gamergate, it's all about the facts. It's like, okay, however we can change it, let's change it. And we're doing it so ethically, that's what's frustrating them. Now, here's the only thing I'm going to caution out to the people watching. When King of Pole goes on his little kindergarten shit fits, or I leaves, or whatever happens, we lose someone that could have been a potentially good supporter. Move on, or counter it in a very cordial way. Like Able Gamers, I feel like until Kotaku in Action wrote up this big piece of saying what we need to do to counter the loss of our ability to give to a charity, kind of as individuals we just let it fall under the bus. I thought that was one of the biggest opportunities that Gamergate had to say, again, we're here for actual gamers, and instead we focused, and I'm definitely guilty of this, of the drama King of Pole was all about, and I'll be honest, I pulled a little kindergarten tweet and was like, if you're going to fight Matt, you might as well fight me too. Now, I don't like Monday Matt, I'll be honest, but it's bullshit to call someone out on Twitter, especially over all this stuff, and to not really admit that you're just one cog in the wheel, and to try to put a crown on your own head. To me, that's like the antithesis of Gamergate.
Mm-hmm. So
They
we're
run
fighting
people,
against,
though,
obviously, a lot of forces, obviously. Good, bad PR, but we are trying to fix things, and one of those lines of thought that I thought I would try and attack is the game reviews. So I have here opened up in one of my bookmarks the Tropico 5 review. Do you have all that opened up? It's in the chat.
Yeah, I've got mine opened up in the
Yeah.
paste bin. Who wrote that, by the way? It's not saying who wrote it.
I don't know, and at this point I don't care. It's bad.
Still think we should at least get the person's name, because one of the ops is Op Metacritic, where they're trying to get Metacritic to actually put the writer's name instead of just the publishing, what do you call these websites? Blog sites. Let's just call them that.
Yeah, that's essentially what they are, and
it's
it's
written
so
by this guy named Charlie Hall.
Charlie Hall.
Something I noticed about this review, I was expecting that it'd be focusing on making dictators look good, but it actually didn't mention that much, even though it mentioned plenty of other awful things.
Mm-hmm. Alright, so I'm going to do a bit of a dramatic reading of this.
Okay.
Embezzlement, human rights violations, the cancellation of women's right to vote, political assassination. These are just some of the lighthearted game mechanics to be found in Tropico 5, a city builder with a twist. Right there you can tell he's already going into things. Going into this with a viewpoint, with a bias, with a strategy in mind. It's the latest in the series of tongue-in-cheek strategy games, and the third to be made by developer Hamilmont. And, much like its predecessors, it aims to put the fun back into dysfunctional totalitarian government. Okay, does someone want to unpack that?
I think Mark can do it. He's the genius out of the group.
Hear that?
I
You're a
think-
genius.
He's already coloured the review within the first couple of sentences, and you already know what his viewpoint's going to be. I mean, especially when he writes the cancellation of women's right to vote. It's very...
Out of
he's
all
got a
the
very
things-
charged... Yeah.
Out of all the things, people dying, your assassinations, people being, coup d'etat out of power, core principle of the game. Nope. Taking away women's rights, bro. Gone too far.
Not the systematic oppression that you can enact on various races and people, or the mass genocides. Just the political assassination and the cancellations of women's right to vote.
Well, he does touch on that stuff later on in the review, but while the game itself works well, the satire it relies on so heavily does not. Tropico 5 tries to be funny, but ends up as a childish thing. A game light on substance, and seemingly unaware of its own internal ironies.
How can it be childish? This is mass murder. There's nothing childish about mass murder. What the fuck?
Yeah.
They have a warped view of what it means to be a child. That's what I think about these types of people. They honestly believe that anything that, if you can derive enjoyment from something perceived as negative, it's childish. It's like, no, it's just fantasy. They call it childish, just call it slightly unhinged.
Yeah, I found the article I was talking about earlier on where this guy tore into Polygon's stance on reviewing and stuff. It's this whole thing about the game reviewers talking down to their audience and stuff.
Yeah, that's what it feels like, doesn't it? Like they treat their audience as if they're a bunch of children in the first place.
And that's the thing that's scary, is that they're always speaking from a high horse, and they get to choose what issues about the game are important, what aspects to highlight, and that's it. Now, that's fine. Critics have been doing that forever, but there's no disclaimer to it. It's not, oh, this is a very opinionated article, this does not focus on the technical aspects of the game. And it's like, why do I want to know any of this? If I'm playing Tropico 5, I know what's in it. I want to know, what aspects I should look out for, what strategies maybe to push that you found. I'm not saying a strategy guide, but geez, I mean, maybe something like that. And for those who haven't bought it, what's it about? Not the systematic oppression of just women selectively, maybe the systematic oppression of everyone. How can I be the best, worst dictator out there?
Mm-hmm. Actually, here's the best sentence in that reply to that Polygon thing. You will notice this critically important dichotomy whenever people like Jera want to get serious about video games. On the one hand, gaming is an empty-headed exercise, the purview of white, straight. They always have to throw that in there. Males who just want to pick up a controller and irresponsibly drop out of existence for a little while, actually probably for days at a time because they're a friendless virgin in their basement somewhere. On the other hand, gaming is a beautiful medium that can elevate the human experience. Which one of these statements is true seems to be entirely at the mercy of whichever snob is busy pontificating on the internet. For those of you interested in that article, it is by... I'm trying to find the name of this guy. It's on some blogging thingy. Yeah.
What really pissed me off about it all was saying irresponsibly, comes out of, removes themselves out of existence. The point of games is you're going to go and play, you're going to de-stress, you're going to enjoy yourself, you're going to relax. This is not, some games are more serious or more realistic, and then there's games that are completely not realistic at all, like Bayonetta. This is just, you're throwing yourself in there. It's the story, this fantasy, things that you wouldn't expect in real life, and that's how you're supposed to treat it. So this whole concept of, oh, you're irresponsibly, taking yourself out of reality. No, it's not irresponsible. You're doing exactly what you mean to do when you play these games. You're playing a game.
Yeah, so by that...
They don't say that.
Yeah,
they don't see it as a game. They see it as some sort of propaganda platform for them to exploit.
And that's
why
because they look at it like that. And that's what's crazy. They don't look at it like it's something to be entertainment and that it's meant to have, perhaps some serious political, statements in there, but they're pretty obvious. They're never subtly attached. And for them, anytime they get to stick their freaking tentacles inside of it, as gross as that is, they want to. Because to them, every single opportunity is, that they can take is a PR stunt. A video game, a TV spot. It's not, this is what we want, it's, oh, look at us, look at us, look at us, to gain more attention, and then eventually you'll get snippets of what they want. Because to be honest with you, I still don't know, outside of Gamergate being done away with, what anti-Gamergate wants out of gaming themselves, or even if they care. Because that's what's sad. If you really think about it, that's the question I would love to ask any of the major proponents of it. What are your goals for gaming in the future? Is it just to have more diversity? Yeah, okay.
It's for control. That's what they want. They want a platform to which they can espouse their psychotic fascist ideals. That's the whole reason why they're in video gaming, and as they've been in comics and all that, is not because they care about the medium itself and what the medium stands for. It's what the medium can do for their message. And this whole idea that games are art is just a shield for them so that they can try and claim the moral high ground or the ethical high ground or whatever, so that they can control the message. They can control the medium that is sending out the message.
Mm-hmm. And at the same time, they send out the message like, oh, you're irresponsible for playing video games. Well, by their logic, no one is supposed to have any fun at any point ever in their lives, or else they're just... Because then they're irresponsible people. It's like, wow. You really went there. We don't get to judge how we spend our time on this earth.
Don't be surprised when they say things like that, because they simply do not care. Logic is not one of their strong points. It's a superpower at this point.
Yeah. So, next paragraph. In Tropico 5, you play as a colonial governor whose family grows over hundreds of years to become the dynastic dictators of a tiny, lush banana republic. I started the game in the colonial era as a governor assigned by the British Crown, and moved through a timeline dotted with multiple world wars and into the present day. Now, here's the next paragraph, something interesting you might want to pay attention to. Externally, my country drifted into and out of the sphere of influence of the Axis powers, the United States, and eventually even China. Internally, political factions tried to undermine my authority and topple my government from within. These are the complex political waters I had to navigate in Tropico 5. Now, that paragraph you would think would be innocuous, but because of his opening paragraph and stuff, you think he's using it as a point against the game. Like, because you were able to get into the sphere of influence of the Axis powers. That's the conclusion I drew from that paragraph when I was reading this review.
It's a bit problematic, isn't it, for people to go into a review with that kind of mindset?
Mm-hmm. I mean,
And
context
I
is
don't like
everything.
using the
Yeah.
It's extremely
word.
problematic.
Yeah.
But I think Jennifer hit on a really good point, too. When do these people distinguish reality from the game and game from reality? Like, sometimes I have to genuinely wonder, do you go to, play Bayonetta or even Resident Evil 4 and seriously think for a second, wow, I'm a skin-tight clad witch who's a total badass with guns for heels? Or do you think, wow, I'm Leon, the emo puss out of all of the raccoon survivors, I'm really fighting the Lost Plagas. But what does that mean for me? What does it mean for the political spectrum of those protecting the president's daughter? Like, do these people seriously think that when they log on or turn these video games on? I'm so genuinely concerned for these people.
They do, man. Like, Bayonetta, the way that they reacted to Bayonetta, it just seems like a woman that's in control of her sexuality, that is completely self-reliant and self-confident, is frightening for these men. They're scared of a woman who's pretty much should be a feminist icon. Because how would they ever talk to a woman that could just beat them up in 5 seconds flat?
Mm-hmm.
Bayonetta is... Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. You go ahead.
Bayonetta is really interesting. I love the game because it's one of the largest contentions within the feminist movement. I don't know. I mean, obviously, you guys don't frequent Tumblr for sure, but feminist blogs and whatnot. Well, I was just saying because a lot of people hate Tumblr and the Gamergate movement, but feminist blogs, especially, you'll notice feminists actually argue and infight amongst each other a lot about Bayonetta. You have the group that says, she's propped up as this really strong, mindful woman, very snarky, isn't afraid to say, speak her mind, very intelligent, in the game. And yeah, she's dressed really provocatively, but that's her choice, and it's her self-expression. And then you have the feminists that argue the typical things you would expect them to argue about the game. But I really love the game for seeing this arguing going on within the feminist movement, and hopefully they're seeing their arguments against each other and realizing, well, the way we argue about this game, maybe we shouldn't be arguing so much or taking it so seriously or so, badly with other games where women are dressed provocatively and are main characters and they still bitch about,
The thing is, this wouldn't be so much of a problem if when they said that this game is sexist, they didn't add as a follow-up, therefore it causes misogyny and sexism.
Right.
And that's the thing. I talked to a lovely young lady who was actually a transfer student at my college, and she lived in Japan and had to leave because of what happened, with the tsunami.
I'll be right back. I gotta update something.
Oh, no, you're fine. With all that, and I had to ask her, because as an American, I just didn't know a lot of things, and one of the questions I had was, why does it seem like a lot of the large, gaming titles that come out, why do the women seem very sexualized? And she said that's something that, in Japan you don't find a lot of, and it's a form of rebellion for a lot of this, and it actually empowers these figures, and it empowers those who play as these figures. It's more of an empowering thing of nothing really can hold me back. I don't have to appeal to this conservative society. And I think that's something that really made me look at it in a different way, because, Samus Aran is one of my favorite characters of all time. And I look at her and I'm like, okay, well, she has her armor on a lot when she's Zero Suit Samus, everything is pretty skin tight. Now, why is that? Now, obviously, there's the logical aspect of it. Okay, it has to be under that suit, so on and so forth, and all that stuff. But it really made me look at it like, wow, she and Bayonetta and a lot of the other females that are, scantily clad, I guess you'd say, are really standing as a form of rebellion. They're proud of what they have, and they're proud of who they are, and they're not hiding anything. And I think that's something to really take in. And that's just one aspect of that whole thing. And for them, they look at it as, because they think, I believe, they think that the demographic is mostly white men, they're going to sit back and say, oh, well, they're just sexualizing a character to draw more. Well, you can't have your cake and eat it too then. Because if the demographic really is mostly white men, and it's being marketed mostly white men, then a majority of gamers are mostly white men. So how are you going to throw out that statistic, oh, it's 50-50, oh, but, they're sexualizing these characters for only half the market? Well, that's not a smart play. It's the best play to, garner a character and draw up a character concept that involves everyone. And that's where I really start getting confused as someone who loves statistics and good, genuine statistics. It really bothers me to see that they're trying to play both sides.
A lot, and touching on that, a lot of it and a lot of the arguments are very contradictory. You'll see where they're saying, oh, for example, there's a contingency within feminism or feminists that they're very supportive of social workers. They're very supportive of the whole, not social workers, what am I talking about? Sorry. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, my brain farted there for a second. But they're very supportive of, prostitution, women, making money off of sex, so long as it's something that they want to do, something that they're actively doing as, their own self-expression, their own money, and it's not that they're being forced to do it in any way, strippers, that they don't mind that. And then you have games like, I remember an old review for the first Dragon Age, which I loved very much, and then got very pissed off at the next one. But the first Dragon Age with the whole brothel and everything, I remember the reviews where they were just hating on it, like profusely, about this brothel that's in this game, and it's horrible, and it's so immoral, and, we shouldn't have to do this when we're in this game, and these background women, and so on. I'm sitting here, and I'm like, really? You can't, you're talking out of both sides of your mouth. Where it's bad and it's good. No, make up your damn mind. Are you supportive of it? Do you realize that this game is actually trying to portray a certain time period, and yeah, there were brothels, and yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing.
Yeah, it's obviously one of those funny things. I mean, speaking as a feminist, I just gotta say, there's a lot of games released in the past couple of years, and even the past couple of decades, with female main characters. They're some of my absolute favorites of all time. We have Fire Emblem, who had Lindis, if anyone knows who I'm talking about. Yay!
Yeah.
You had the recent Tomb Raider, and you have the upcoming Tomb Raider. The recent Tomb Raider was great. It was great because it had a female character too. So there is a place for feminist kind of like ideologies in gaming, but at the same time, and you got to take into account that you have a responsibility towards the audience that's going to be reading it. So it's weird.
Well, at the latest conference, half of the games that were announced or discussed had female, playable female characters. So, this whole concept of that, like, oh, there's no movement in the right direction with this stuff. No, that's a lie. There's plenty of movement in that direction. Devs are very cognizant of this. Yeah, there's a disparity of female devs to male devs, that there's not enough women, joining the industry, but that's not because women are being pushed out of the industry. Plenty of HR folks for all these, major publishers, they're talking about how they are practically begging women to apply for jobs. They want them. It looks good for them even to have women on, in their team. But women just aren't studying STEM, and that's really not so much a comment, I think, on the gaming industry or gaming culture right now. That's more a comment on education and parenting and people pushing these kids, girls in that direction and encouraging them one way or the other. And that's a bigger argument that's really outside of, yeah, gaming industry is a part of it. Yeah, what we do within the gaming industry and gamers ourselves are a part of it, but a very small aspect of it. So when people try to put that responsibility on us and saying that it's our fault, as gamers, or how these games are developed or the games we're playing, I really don't buy that at all.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's much like blaming a meteorologist for it raining.
Interesting though, in regards to female characters, Daniel Favre, who's a developer of Kingdom Come Deliverance, he put up a tweet with I think it was a study about the last year's current top 100 games, and it said something like out of the 100 games, 55 of them had a female protagonist, whereas 45 of them had a male protagonist. So it's a lie that they're spinning, because first of all, women are not being driven out of the industry. In fact, we're experiencing a growth of women joining the tech and video gaming industry, even by IGDA's own admission, which is when Mr. Fedora dude had a Twitter shit fight with Brianna Wu, where she said to him, "Stop mansplaining stats to me." I have to find all this stuff, but if you guys have been following for any longer than a couple of months, you probably have seen that.
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
The idea that women are not entering the tech industry is complete bullshit. It is 100% grade bullshit. Nobody is being driven out. Being driven out is like someone constantly pushing you to leave, telling you to leave. And I've never ever heard of a article or anybody saying, I was driven out of the industry because of these people harassing me, and it's completely sexist and misogynist. I've heard people leave.
But Mark, wait a second. But what about that shirt with scantily clad women on it? Didn't that push plenty of women out of the industry that were studying it?
I wouldn't know. I was so figured I actually passed out. So,
if anything showed the modern hypocrisy of some of these radical feminists, it was that. That was just one of those perfect little moments that we just. My advocacy for pro Gamergate right now, my best advice to them: just watch anti-Gamergate trip over themselves. It's hilarious.
I cannot describe how insulted I was by men suggesting that I would be pissed or I would be upset and stop studying computer engineering just because some dude was wearing a tacky shirt with scantily clad women on it. I don't give a crap. Really? You think I'm going to quit paying all this ludicrous money for my studies because some dude, was wearing a tacky shirt? No. What's wrong with you? That's insulting.
It wasn't even tacky. That shirt was awesome. Come on, let's admit it. It has hot chicks shooting guns. That is cool.
That's my thing for sure. It's pretty hot.
Okay. We have a discussion question actually, and this just so we can get back to the game reviews thing. This is from Frank Gamer on Kotaku in Action. He says, "Do you buy into the idea that an unbiased review is impossible?"
No. Completely. Biased can be anything. It can be you have a relation to what you're reviewing. You have an ideological slant onto what you're reviewing. I don't think it's impossible. I mean, I have absolutely no clue about hunting and all that sort of stuff. I could give an unbiased review in that if I did it, if I actually participated in a hunting activity as being a new person, and then I just said, this is what hunting is, this is what you do during hunting, and I leave it at that, and I say the experience was, you can have an experience, whether it's good or bad. I would consider that the closest thing to being unbiased that you can get to. I think when you start to move towards being incredibly biased, and when you actually start to have them, is when you go into your subject matter with preconceived notions. Mm-hmm. So if you can approach something with no preconceived notions of what you're doing, I don't think you inherently have a bias. But I'm sure someone would argue against that. So.
Well, I would say that it's an impossible task for me, because I don't want someone who hasn't gamed to do reviews on gaming, because they're going to be going in and asking more questions and not offering more answers. And that's, to me, the point of a review, is to provide answers to someone who's not yet, immersed themselves or has not yet bought said product. So I think it is impossible, but it's a goal to strive for. It's always the idea of, is there a way to be a perfect whatever, a perfect person? Well, no, obviously not. But in life, we strive to be better than who we were yesterday, or, most people do. So I think it's an impossible task, but it's something we should not stop striving for just because we can't achieve it. Now, with that being said, it all comes down to disclaimers, comes down to opening up and saying, this is my opinion, off the record comments, things like that. I think that's something that we should hold people's feet to the fire on, is to say, when you give your ideological value or scaling on this game, you need to admit it. And I think the perfect person, and perfect in a lot of ways considering gaming reviews is Total Biscuit. I mean, when he comes out and starts talking about his opinion on something, it's very clear that he's talking about it. Now, when he brings up technical issues, it's very clear he's talking about that. It's clarity that we're trying to achieve here. And being unbiased or biased, that's such a measure that can be simplified and solved by a few sentences saying, this is an opinionated editorial, this is an opinionated piece, this focuses more on technical aspects. So you go into it knowing with the right frame and right mindset. So I say yes, but it's not something to stop striving for.
I agree with that, and I would expand. I'd say it also depends on your definition of bias or what you're worried about in respects to bias. If you're worried about, as far as if you can be neutral in reviewing the game, as far as do you have any relationships with the people that have created the game or were a part of the game, oh, for sure. You could definitely be unbiased in that way. Not being paid by the developer to review it, not having a personal relationship with somebody that might get a bonus from your review. You can definitely be impartial in that respect. I mean, obviously, if you're talking about bias, like as far as temperament related to your individual, your identity, your race, religion, social class, whatnot, everybody is biased in that respect. That's not, I mean, it's inconceivable to try and expect that there wouldn't be bias in that in that way, which is why you have to pay attention to who's reviewing the game, and that's also a big part of why we're trying to seek people expressing what their name is and their identity in Metacritic reviews, so we can see who these people are and review them before we see their reviews, see if there's any type of bias in that respect as an individual. But as far as a developer, the relationships in that respect, whether they have an open mind on technical issues, whatnot, if they've disclosed things, I mean, definitely, you can definitely be impartial in that way and unbiased and neutral.
Mm-hmm. I personally believe pretty much the same things. It's impossible to be perfectly unbiased. It clearly is, but you can strive for it at the very least. One of the big things people say, well, since it's impossible to be completely objective, that means we should abandon the pursuit of objectivity. And like Total Biscuit said, that's totally inherently false. You can strive for it at the same time as you are reviewing a game. If you just are holding to your biases, more power to you. But at the same time, you're not trying to consider other people's points of view, and eventually people will stop reading you. So,
I just think, on the term of bias, I actually don't think it's impossible. On the grounds that if you have an open mind, if you're willing to try and to pay respects to the experiences that you have when you're writing your review, I think it's completely possible. I think the issue is with so many different variables of what a review is, it becomes harder. And people don't want to try. It's easier to write a subjective article against an objective one, because an objective one implies that you understand any and all of the any of the facts, anything to do with the game that is objective, such as, like I said, bugs and stuff like that. But if you write a subjective one, it all comes straight from you. You can just write whatever the hell you want on a piece of paper and then put it out to whoever you want. But in saying that, I don't think having a completely an unbiased article is good. I think it's possible, I just don't think it's a good thing, because everybody is looking for some sort of perspective that aligns with their own, so it helps them understand where someone else is coming from.
Mm-hmm. So we got a new person on board, David Gonzalez. You can unmute yourself now.
Top left corner, David. It's right next to the camera.
I'm Batman.
Maybe he doesn't want to.
I'm sorry, David. We probably talked you to sleep.
All right. So, back to this Tropico 5 review. I'm just gonna read one more paragraph here. I'm skipping 2 paragraphs here just because it deals with some of the game mechanics and stuff. I just want to deal with some of his opinions on this whole thing. Despite the natural evolution of my early resources, the message behind Tropico 5 satire first began to show its cracks within the tech tree. Leaving aside the story as it is told, that you are a European governor whose family has taken control of a native population and installed yourself to rule them, I was shocked to find that nearly every technological advancement takes agency away from the society that is researching it.
What does that mean?
Exactly.
What does that even mean? What does it mean to take agency away from a society because of what they're called?
Actually, I'll skip right to the paragraph where he addresses that directly, and then I'll double back because there's a hilarious paragraph. But as presented, advancements are either stumbled upon through buffoonish accidents or stolen from more advanced countries. I didn't discover embassies. I stole the technology from the French. I didn't invent the tank. I hotwired one and took it on a clumsy rampage through Europe.
Does he not know history?
Yeah, I know.
I know that nations actively do this to each other.
I know. I said that in the first attempt at this stream. I was like, you fucking loon. Do you not know history at all? Even with institutions in place like libraries and university, the best your backward people can do is 8 more successful civilizations. The gag got old quick.
Well, you guys got to understand, these are the same people that think that cultural appropriation is one of the worst things you can do to another culture, while not realizing that cultures benefit from, melting in together, and that diversity, while it has a lot of problems, actually helps everyone because you take the benefits of one culture and merge it with the benefits of another. And they don't look at, technology. They think it's a standalone thing, that it's in a vacuum, that, if I, take this from someone else, I'm just stealing right. Well, no. That's how ideas are spread. I mean, if we lived in the world that they wanted, I would still be wearing a kilt naked on top of some mountain. Like, there's no way that these people
Is that a good thing or a bad thing? It depends on your point of view.
Well, that's the way out there. That's the whole thing. These people have never opened a history book to realize that all of the things that are really against, essentially, is things that have benefited humanity and society in general, and have made it what it is today. And a lot of the better aspects are from this, diverse group grouping together with another diverse group, or even just standalone groups finally coming together. See, really what's scary is these people preach, diversity, 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 but they really just want to isolate 2 groups from one another. They want white cis males to be white cis males. You can't be, in the same group as, a Hispanic trans. Like, you can't do that. No.
It's inherently anti-progress. But my favorite line is, the best your backward people can do is 8 more successful civilizations. Basically, I tore into him in the first attempt and basically said, the Romans got all of their ideas from the Greeks.
That's true. Their gods are based on the Greek gods. They just renamed them.
The Americans, the French Revolution, history advances through the appropriation of cultural elements. I mean, I use the example of Karl Marx, and he was a German. The Russians used his ideas. So this guy is an idiot. He doesn't understand history. He attempts to think that he does, but he doesn't. Reading this, I had to yell at this guy at the screen. I had to yell at the screen because he was so stupid saying this sentence.
But the thing about it this way, the Japanese have culturally appropriated video games. Because video games didn't start in Japan. This is another thing that just it gets me. How can you promote diversity but then say cultural appropriation is wrong? They go hand in hand. If you're going to have a diverse group of people, you've got to be able to share your culture with each other. Otherwise, you're just talking past each other. You're living in closed rooms. It makes absolutely no sense. I just feel like cultural appropriation is just a made-up pejorative just so that they can have a go at people. Another one of their useless buzzwords.
Well, this is unrelated, kind of, but just kind of as a joke, in appropriation. Did you know recently now pagans are trying to reappropriate witches during Halloween because they were offended at how witches are depicted? So Wiccan circles have actually started, there's a group, I forgot what it's called, that they're reappropriating witches to be a more positive context and how you view witches. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I'd say
good luck with that. All right, so back to this review, just so we
let's stay on topic.
Yeah.
So
here's me doubling back on the 3 paragraphs before that last one we just covered. During loading screens, players are treated to a series of gorgeous oil paintings, the kind you might pick up yourself at a roadside stand on some tropical island. Each one has a sentence or two that shares some lighter anecdotes about infamous dictators. Instead of injecting levity into the game, they only serve to darken the mood. The game sells itself as an escape from the confines of traditional city-building video games that take themselves too seriously. But then, in this game, you could watch as soldiers run from your palace, kick in the doors of private homes, and shoot dissenters in their sleep. Then, you can look at individual family trees and confirm that you have made their partners into widows and orphaned their children. It was hard for me to get perspective on all the charming quirks of Kim Jong-il, Enver Hoxha, and Nikolai Kozakiw, people who I was imitating in the game, when I knew that they were responsible for the rape, murder, and enslavement of many thousands, perhaps even millions of real people. Instead of making me chuckle, Tropico 5 constantly reminded me of all the blood staining my hands. What could have been a commentary on narrow-minded dictators instead enforced the game's backward world view. Wow.
Oh my god.
Let's stop there for a second. I want to go to the next sentence immediately. As presented, advancements are either stumbled upon through buffoonish accidents or stolen from more advanced countries. Gunpowder did not start out as gunpowder. It was used for fireworks. It was an accident when they figured out how to use it to kill people. More often than not, technology is an accident. And it's usually silly.
Mm-hmm.
This is... Yeah. These people are fucking insane. They have no clue of history or anything pertaining to it.
I'm an
let's-
amateur historian, and just reading this pissed me off.
Well, let's just step back for a moment. You have bought Tropico 5 because Pirate Bay is gone. Sadly, rest in peace. And
Rip.
you're playing a game to be a dictator. Why the fuck do you want to learn all the travesties about being a dictator and make you feel bad while playing a virtual form of that? It's supposed to be satire for satire's sake. You're supposed to enjoy and relish in the demise of all these other people and the systematic oppression because it's a video game. It's the point to revel in something like that. Much like The Life of Brian for Monty Python, it's supposed to be satire. It's supposed to make fun of it. I mean, I've never thought in my life I would laugh at a stoning of a human being, but Monty Python did that for me. And it's just, it's
But don't you know? We're in desperate need of games that aren't fun.
Well, here is even something even funnier. I remember reading a Tropico 5 a review that was like a counter review. Like I was saying earlier, a lot of reviews were chastising, much like this paragraph you just read, this idea that dictators are good. You know, that this game made people feel like dictators are good in some way. And there's a lot of reviews chastising it. And then there was this one review that was very controversial. I wish I could remember who wrote it. And he was addressing that. And he said, okay, you want to take the game more seriously and you want to take a serious role on it? Okay, I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, but if you think about it and you really know a lot about history, while Hitler, Castro, and other dictators have done some really terrible things to certain people, you have to recognize that while these sections of people were hated on a lot and terrible things happened to them, there were also great things happening to the country and certain sections of people. So really the game kind of reflects that in a way.
Well,
sadly, but truthfully it does. It shows the benefits that many people enjoyed and then the travesties and bad things that a lot of people enjoyed as well. Well, not enjoyed, but suffered from as well. So in a sense, if you really want to take it from a realistic sense, yeah, not all of it was bad for dictators. Dictators actually did benefit certain sects of people within their country.
The sad thing about history is it's not black and white.
Right. And funny enough, my family is Cuban, came from the more rich Cuban sects, and white, obviously. And my family in Cuba actually really benefited a lot from Castro reign. And I really have no idea why they left, necessarily, because they were making a lot of money. And, yeah, Castro's really bad to certain people, but let me tell you, my family, they were just relishing. They were making tons of money. Castro loved them. They were benefiting completely from the dictatorship. So this whole concept, if you want to take the game realistically, okay, let's take it realistically, but at least know what history's about. At least, be more constructive in your review if you're going to do that. This guy is just, he's completely he's doing that whole thing, and I hate to say it, but he's doing that whole social justice push, using these different terms, appropriating, oh, these women were hated on, or oh, this is childish, but it's like, if you're going to review the context of how it affected people in realism and realistically, then at least have an idea of what realistically happens under dictatorships and what's happened in history.
Yeah, here's the next couple of problematic paragraphs. The comedic missteps didn't stop there. The text of one technological advancement made a dated Brokeback Mountain joke. Another promised that your male soldiers could become highly trained, only after each of them has had sexual congress with the winner of a beauty pageant. Everything is a joke in Tropico 5, but very few of them are funny. What could have been a poignant, perhaps even hilarious commentary on the nature of narrow-minded dictators merely served to enforce the game's backward world view. He just totally destroyed his own argument, didn't he?
It's not only that.
And here's the thing. I just want to say this real quick, Mark. My friend has pointed out something that he's played, and he knows about Tropico. He says, the funny thing about this is the reviewer misses the entire point, that you can actually play as a positive leader and promote democracy and egalitarianism. Basically saying that you have a conscious choice whether or not to be a complete dictator or someone that we would respect today as, the leader of the free world or a leader in general of a, civilized country. He just completely throws that idea out the window.
Yeah, but then think about this. Think about this. What does that say about Chris Hall as a person? Is he the type of person to be a just and wise leader, or is he a complete and utter psychopathic mass murderer? This is what they don't understand. These games give you a choice to be a good person or a bad person. He's obviously picked being a bad person because it's who he is. And then he's getting angry at himself.
It's funny how this is associated with a very recent game that's trying to, they're banning from Target Australian, stores.
GTA 5.
This whole idea that, oh, you have to kill the prostitute. No, you don't. You don't have to do anything immoral in the game if you don't want to.
I've never murdered a prostitute in that game. Never.
So
I've
you
never
have
done
options, and if you decide not to do it, you have that option.
Yeah. Here's the punchline. Tropico 5 made me feel powerful in the worst way. Tropico 5 succeeded in making me feel powerful, and it enabled me to create a world in my image. Ha! But the game so entirely lacks compassion that it made me feel like a bully. Ha!
Wait, stop
There's
there.
an undeniable tension between the player in the role of the dictator and the citizens. Tropico 5 fails to reconcile that conflict in a mature way, missing its shot at changing the series from a thoughtless getaway to a memorable, meaningful trip. You seem to want this game to be something more than it's trying to be, you dumbass.
He already says that, though. He says it enabled him to create a world in his image, the image that he wants. He's blatantly said that this game allowed him to create a world that he would have created in the first place, if given the chance.
And that's just... How does he breathe? Does he remember? Does he have a book that tells him, hey man, remember, drawing air through your nose and out through your mouth?
It's written on his forehead, and every time he goes to the mirror it says, remember to breathe, idiot.
Yeah, this is truly the definition of insanity. You build this large, convoluted argument of saying, well, this is why the game is bad, this is why the game is bad, this is why the game is bad. And in the last bit, you turn around and say, well, this is all by my choice.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly it.
Here's the thing, too. It's interesting to analyze this, but out of, what is this, like 12, 13 paragraphs in this review, I think fully 6 or 7 of them deal with his social justice aspects. So it's fully 50% of the review.
And
dealing with insane.
That's what Gamergate is truly against. If he disclaimed that and said this is going to be an extremely opinionated piece, someone would go in it with the right mentality and the right mindset, walk away and say that's just that guy's opinion. Some people will read that, and because that's not there, they will assume a lot of that is fact, that's the right way to think. He's a reviewer, he knows more than me. And it truly is sad that this guy doesn't even know the basics of apologetics. He doesn't know the basics of, placing an argument, and he undermines himself. Yet there's so many people that would believe this bullshit. And that's what's really the sad thing, is that can you see that this is just a textbook of bottlenecking the industry, of making it look like Tropico 5 is one of the worst fucking games ever? Like, you go in and the first loading screen is you have to kill a child just to play. Like, it's seriously, you go into it and you look at Tropico 5, which is a great game, which it's all by choice, and into this entire thing, if someone just glances at it, they're going to leave it thinking, wow, I'm just going to be performing the Holocaust again, instead of thinking, oh, well, this is all by choice.
I just want to go through something quickly. I'm on the Steam page for Tropico 5, right, and I'm going through all the negative reviews. I can't find any review that is negative because of the content, because of the social justice aspect. Everybody is complaining about the game mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it has a 76% approval rating on Steam, so it's mostly positive. And the only complaints that people are having is the fact that it's either, oh, it's a DLC for Tropico 4, or there's problems with the game mechanics. This guy clearly has a chip on his shoulder going into this review.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's the thing, and it's what's been my main argument about game reviews this whole time. It's the context for what a lot of gamers would like there to be in the review, because the length of modern day game reviews just isn't there. It's like 50% of this review deals with social justice aspects more than the actual game itself. It's like that's the main problem. It's context, and the context that they're choosing to provide is not the context that gamers or any general public person who wants to read about a game wants to hear or read about. Your mic isn't working, Jen. Sorry.
This guy doesn't even criticize the core gameplay itself or the mechanics behind it. He goes into it for like one paragraph, and then he goes on this whole social justice spiel for the rest of the bloody review. There's also something I wanted to bring up before regarding there's a line, what could have been a commentary on narrow-minded dictators instead enforce the game's backward worldview. There was that study that said that people who play video games with a negative social aspects or anything are more aware of it coming out of it. The game implies that you as a person understand morals and ethics and stuff like that, anything to do with how you treat other people. Going into that game, playing an evil dictator should, in theory, make you feel that this is what these dictators feel when they're being complete pricks to their country. I would never want to be that.
Mm-hmm. It's funny sort of because it fulfilled its purpose, and to him, it fulfilled its purpose.
But he sees everything in black and white. He takes everything at face value and then writes it down. The nuance is lost on him.
Here's I don't really know how I view it or how I would take it necessarily, but here's something I've been wondering. With the latest influx in more casual players, just casually playing games, and they're really not big. They wouldn't consider themselves big gamers per se. I wonder if reviewers are catering more to this group that is more casual and worries more about these other aspects that are social justice-y per se, and use these other terms or concerns that more casual players would care about in their games, or is it that these casual gamers are now becoming reviewers, or subscribing to this idea that they're saying, oh, I'm a reviewer now and reviewing these games, and actual, people that game a lot, I hate to say actual gamers because everybody's a gamer, but I mean people that game a lot or heavily and worry more about the technical aspects and worry more about the gameplay in general, I wonder if there should be a disclaimer over how much you're into gaming or who you're trying to cater to with your audience, before you even engage into this interview. And that's kind of going off of what Nintendo was saying.
Mm-hmm. But I think that in terms of that, I believe that should be the editor of the publication's responsibility to determine what stance his writers have in their reviews and stuff. And obviously we're seeing these editors are taking on the social justice aspect because they feel they're above gamers. They feel they're above gaming. Hence, gamers are over. Gamers are dead.
One thing I just wanted to ask about, because, I think it's good just to get some clarity. I want to know, I just saw this posted by you, Jennifer, and it's about our retweet of the Steve Sawyer being a scammer and Devi ever being a traitor. Honestly, I don't know who those two people are, and I'm not sure everyone else knows who these people are. So do you mind just kind of clarifying that for me?
Yeah, it's very easy. You-
Well, I'll just cover one of it, I guess. It's just, well, first of all, it's a drawing that I saw on 8chan, and I shared it because I liked the general message of it. Unfortunately, I only have 140 characters to describe why I'm sharing a tweet or an image or whatnot, but I shared it because I like the general message of that. There's no actual leaders of Gamergate, and that, people with a lot of followers, they come and go, or people with a lot of they're very vocal, and a lot of people like to follow them and pay attention to them. They don't always stick around, and that's not, they're not integral to the movement. There's so many people in the movement. Some people don't even know who King of Pola is, or Internet Aristocrat. For a long time, I had no idea who these people were. It was only through posting so much on Twitter that I got wind of it, especially with all the drama that happened. But what I'm getting into is I posted it because of that message. As far as the people that are pictured in the drawing, a lot of them I really just don't know enough about. As far as Debbie Ever, I only know things of what people tell me. And what I would more be interested in discussing about her is stuff that's for sure, like, we know happened. And what I know happened for sure is that she did a Kickstarter. She was pro Gamergate originally a while ago. Well, not a while ago, just a couple months ago, actually. Very recently. She was pro Gamergate. She did a Kickstarter that was based off of guitar pedals, because she had a guitar pedal business for a while that she just got stressed out and just spent out on, and she stopped doing it. But the Kickstarter failed. Well, no, it was funded, but she failed to procure what was promised. And she has refunded some of her backers, but a lot of them she hasn't, or she hasn't fully refunded them, or she promised guitar pedals on top of their half refund, and she hasn't given any guitar pedals to the people that said, okay, give me a pedal then. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot of possible fraudulent stuff going on with the Kickstarter. Unfortunately, due to how Kickstarter, the nature of Kickstarter, the actual backers would have to sue her. Otherwise, Kickstarter can't do anything themselves, or they won't do anything themselves, is what I should say. Now, as far as the trader aspect, she apparently, and this is all just stuff I was told, I don't know for sure, I try to not involve myself too much in that drama, but she left Gamergate because she's transsexual, and Nero or Milo, he said something about transsexuals, or something that was perceived as transphobic. I don't know if he did or didn't, because I wasn't paying attention to that, or I don't really follow him. But she got really upset about it because she's transsexual, and she tried to get other people to, address it with him, and I guess from what people are saying, push him out of the movement. And people weren't following her, they weren't backing her on that, and a lot of people went against her concept of doing that. They felt that she was too aggressive against him, and she was approaching it the wrong way, and she got upset. And so she left Gamergate, and that was that. So that's why she's considered a traitor.
In terms of the Steve Tom Sawyer stuff, there are some rumors that he faked a certain incident in order to get views for his podcast, but I won't go into the details because it's unconfirmed, it's alleged, and quite frankly, it's drama.
I'll talk about Debbie Ever for a second, because I actually followed her when she started dropping in, actually before Gamergate, because I do play guitar myself, so... Okay, so what happens is she joins Gamergate because she makes videos. She was making videos about her connections with people like Zoe Quinn, who she does have a connection with Anita Sarkeesian and Jonathan McIntosh. Now, at the time, she had a Kickstarter for her pedals called Debbie Ever Pedals. She funded the Kickstarter, and then she failed to produce what she was meant to. Now, the excuse that she gave in one of her videos before she took it down was that she blamed it all on her ex-girlfriend for being a money drain, saying that looking after her was like looking after a fucking child, that they were constantly buying food, eating out, which was draining their money. Essentially, she just doesn't know how to manage money, and that's entirely her fault. But she tried to paint the picture as if it was because of her girlfriend that she failed the Kickstarter.
Although it is worth mentioning that Debbie did admit that she did mismanage the funds, that she's very poor at managing funds. Yeah.
She's got no choice but to. But in regards to the pedals, the people who were helping her make the pedals now now own the production of the pedals. They're the ones who are making them for her now because she had to sell it off to them. She claimed that somebody had been stalking her over Twitter, and this same person actually came into Kotaku in action and explained that this person, Devi Eva, has a history of being a social chameleon, and she always touts her Patreon every time she joins some sort of group or whatever, which if you had been following, she does it all the time. Donate to my Patreon, donate to my Patreon. Because she's something like $70,000 in debt, and the IRS are after her. That's what Mike had said, Mike Cernovich, or implied, I should say, because he doesn't really come out and say certain things for legal reasons. But she ended up getting angry at Milo for what he said on the David Pakman show regarding transsexuals, where he believes that they are sick or mentally ill and that they need therapy instead of surgery. Now, regarding his opinion on transsexuality, it's just his opinion, okay? There are transsexuals that actually follow him and that talk to him. They are very comfortable with him having his own opinion. They don't hold it against him.
And let's cut into that real quick. Let's cut into that real quick. And there's this is really so imperative and so important here in what people say as far as in the Gamergate movement. I disagree with Milo. I disagree with a lot of things he says all the damn time. In fact, I unfollowed him for that reason. But I won't sit here and say, oh, I hate every single thing he says and like argue against every little thing that he tweets. I mean, it's unreasonable. It's illogical. I can't do that. But the opposition expects us to disagree with every little tweet that happens from Gamergate supporters, and it's like, that's impossible. There's tens of thousands of people who comment on Gamergate every day, and just because something hurts your feelings or upsets you, or seems bigoted, or seems anti-trans or whatever else, I mean, that's going to happen no matter what group you're in, no matter where you are. And this whole expectation that a group of tens of thousands of people are supposed to all collectively go against one tweet of one person is just illogical. You know, and that happens day in and day out where they say, oh, Gamergate is a hate mob because this one little tweet that one person said that was possibly misrepresented to begin with, you know, you didn't go against that. It's just stupid.
Yeah, I disagree vocally with many of the members of this movement. Like, obviously, I disagree with Ralph Retort for his focus on character assassination. He's called me out for it, and I respect that. And it's like, we don't all have to agree with each other in order to work towards something common.
It's as if we're a group of diverse people.
Oh, shocking!
No, that can't be right.
No, apparently I'm white, so it's okay. I've resigned myself to my whiteness.
But yeah, by all means, go ahead with Debbie. Sorry, I just wanted to cut in with that because
her thing is almost
white.
finished. Don't worry about her.
Look at me, I'm white.
Oh, jeez. You are Casper the Ghost. You are the leader of the Ku Klux Klan. That's how white you are.
Actually, someone made that Klan comparison in my earlier Twitter war with Pixie, and I was like, listen, the Klan has a clear movement, it has clear leaders, it has clear motivations, and its followers obviously work towards that common goal. Gamergate has none of those. Stop making Klan comparisons. It just makes you look like a fool.
Oh, they already look like fools. They know it. They're just going to harp on anyway. Anyway, so regarding with Devi, she doesn't like Milo because of the things that he said. She tried to turn Gamergate against him, all the while still fucking puppeting her Patreon. And then she leaves Gamergate the first time saying that her bank accounts had been hacked and that she'd been compromised. And then she said, oh, I can't do this anymore, Gamergate, it's too dangerous. That is what she said. And that was the first time that she deleted everything. She does these wipes that to sort of remove evidence. And then she still tweets pro-Gamergate stuff, right? She just doesn't try to get too much involved. But she still keeps hinting at dropping Milo. Now, we can't drop Milo. We can't stop him from doing what he wants to do. He's reporting on the issue, that's his right. As much as people disagree, like with Jen, who has unfollowed him, that's what you should be doing. If you don't agree with someone's opinion, unfollow them. Just don't pay attention to them. It's not hard, right? Then she comes back once again as Debbie after the third time, saying all these horrible things about Gamergaters, saying they're all transphobic and shit like that. And I think Sophia, who goes by the name Hidden Tranny, had a go at her. I can't remember what exactly was said, but something along the lines is not everyone's transphobic, what's your problem? And then she leaves again because people weren't happy with what she was saying, and now she's come back as Grace Lynn, the Pixel Goth. As far as I'm concerned, don't bother with her. She's trying to make herself famous because she's trying to get people to donate to her Patreon to pay off her debts.
So that explains why she's traitor in the image.
She's playing both sides for money. That's all it is. So don't touch her, don't talk to her, just leave her alone. She'll defeat herself. In regards to Mr. Steve Tom Sawyer and Review Mage, Steve has made a claim that he was attacked by his ex-girlfriend, or his girlfriend where he was staying at, and that her friends, attacked him while he was at her place while she was at work over Gamergate. Now, the video got released by Ralph, and it shows that there really wasn't anything to do with Gamergate, and it wasn't necessarily harassment because it was too vague of a claim to make. There are other claims being made that he's a liar and a manipulator, as people from the review labs had released a statement saying, he had harassed several of the female members and one of the female vice president, I think she is, or the vice.
Can I cut in real quick? Because I didn't know about any of this. The last time I knew anything about this was when he had gone silent because he had given stuff to the police. So now you're telling me about this video, and you're telling me there was really nothing related to Gamergate. But what I distinctly remember, and this is going to get funny, is I remember King of Pole saying that he watched the video and it was verifiable that Gamergate was related. Am I wrong?
Remember who you just said verified it, right? This is King of Pole we're talking about. This is the same guy that got trolled in his little...
Okay, I just wanted to verify that, that I didn't read incorrectly there, because I really didn't hear about these new developments. I didn't watch the video, so...
They're a bit old. I'll link them to you so that you can actually see what's going on. These are Ralph's, because the person that was working, who was a partner with Steve, is Nearden. I don't know how to pronounce his username. It's just a pain in the ass.
We haven't heard from David at all during the stream. I just realized.
Oh, something's wrong with his mic.
Oh. Can you guys hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yes, hear you.
Cool, no problem.
Anyway, I want to get this out of the way because I don't think we should be talking about it too much, but it helps for people to know. Claims were made against Steve Tom Sawyer that he is a con artist, that he's ripping people off. There was a claim made that the Radio Nero idea he stole for carbon-based gaming. I'm not saying whether it's true or not. I don't know. That was the claim that was made. It also was in relation to why Nero had to cancel that appointment with Brianna Wu, as is implied by Nearden. So Mercedes was quite upset because she felt that she'd been cheated as well. I'm not sure where I can find those tweets because I'd have to dig through everything. But so what's been said and what's been done, Steve is not. He's not really doing anything anymore. He doesn't control Review Labs, the website, anymore. That got taken off him by Nearden. And yeah, so essentially, Deviev is a con artist, and Steve Tom Sawyer is implied to be one. That's all you need to know. I've linked the Ralph report in there, in the chat, so you can read it.
Yeah.
But
That answers those questions.
Yeah, I just wanted to get back to the topic of the games review. Guess what review I have lined up?
That's what I'm trying to say.
What
Guess
review?
I have lined up.
Is it the Dragon's Crown one? Please tell me it's
Oh,
the
no.
Dragon's Crown.
This is a classic. Come on. I'll give you a hint. It's by Electronic Gaming Monthly.
EGM. Is it to do with Revolution 60?
Oh, no.
Not Depression Quest?
This is
That'd
fun.
be terrible. Please no.
No. Okay. I'll read this first paragraph, then you can. Most game developers are problem solvers by nature, and few dilemmas vex them more than the challenge of building a great video game based on a licensed franchise. So, when Sega announced in 2006 that they tapped the crew, Gearbox Software, creators of the Borderlands titles, to take a stab at the Alien universe, it gave gamers and Xeno fans alike a reason to hope.
Come on.
Yes. This is that review.
Damn it.
That is a shill review if I've ever heard of one.
Yeah, and this highlights the problem because this is recent. This is like last year recent. It's not some distant thing that we're just dredging up from out of the blue.
Okay.
So aliens, colonial marines, right? Am I
Yeah.
on the right? Okay.
Okay.
Shit.
Here's exactly why gaming journalism and critics have such a responsibility to the consumer. If they got a hand on it pre-release and said, do not buy, the trailer was a freaking lie of, like the lie of the century in terms of gaming, that's their responsibility. And to be honest with you, outside of Jim Sterling, I think a lot of them just kind of, meh, I got money, yeah, it's a good game, or it looks like it's going to be a good game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the entire problem right there, is, how did this slip through the cracks, honestly?
Well, here's the thing. Gaming reviews kind of wrote themselves into the big corner, right? It's like early on you had the joke where, all right, we'll just we'll just discuss this until that point. But early on in gaming critics, they were like listing off checkboxes. Oh, this is multiplayer. Oh, this has this, and this. 10 out of 10. And then game publishers and developers respond to that by adding those elements in, and then all of a sudden game critics decide to all of a sudden be about, oh, the art of video games. Video games are important pieces of art, and then they just then they're surprised when people call them out on where they are at right now when people ask them to talk about game mechanics instead of all the social justice art aspects of game reviews and stuff. They wrote themselves into this corner, and they're surprised when people call them out on it.
Yep. I just don't understand how they can be mad at half of the stuff they say. It really is the old analogy of you can't be mad at the wasp when you kick the nest.
So we have a new person here, Samus Aran.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey, so what I feel based on what I just listened to is, this shit used to happen to Tarantino back in the days, and Tarantino still makes Tarantino movies, and GTA 6 is going to be fucking GTA. Do you really think they... Like, look, I hate the anti-Gamergate crowd, but do you think it's a real threat to the industry?
Yep.
Because of Metacritic and all the publisher bonuses, and unfortunately what we have is an $80 billion industry where word of mouth, which is what reviews constitute, direct traffic. So
But
certain...
do you
Wait,
think...
What are you asking?
do you
is a
think
threat?
do you think GTA is gonna change how GTA 6 is based
Okay.
on these fucking social justice warriors?
Well, here's the
Why
question
not?
with that. Well, here's the question with that. Is GTA the only franchise out there? GTA on its own can stand. It's one of the very few franchises that can stand on its own 2 feet and not be touched. A lot of Nintendo is branching out to the American arms. So, Samus Aran, Metroid could eventually succumb to some of the stuff they're talking about. Eventually. It's an eventuality. It's stopping the festering wound before
No,
it becomes
trust me, I'm
cancer.
on your side. I'm pro Gamergate.
Yeah.
I'm
It's
on
not
your
that.
side.
It's not that. What I'm saying is, you're right about GTA, but think about some of the other games that could, fall to it. Smaller games that are trying to get out and do something innovative that are going to get bottlenecked by someone who doesn't like how that person believes.
Well,
Tekken
on top
7.
of that, I want to add, when you see it from the perspective of how many games have been sold by them, obviously Rockstar's like, my bottom line's not going to be hurt by Target Australia not selling the re-release of the game. It's not going to be a big deal, obviously. However, the real concern is funny enough more, or sadly enough more, the outsiders looking in, not the industry itself. The people who are trying to draw influence on the gaming industry, they don't see it from that perspective. They see it as, oh, we or our people were able to get this game pulled from the shelves in Australia, so what does that say about our voice and our ability to do this in the future. That means that it's possible. So that gives them credence, and that gives them motivation, that gives them morale to do it again and keep doing it whenever they disagree with what's in a game. So now you have this bigger, growing group of people that feel emboldened, and the bigger it gets, the worse it is, especially for smaller publishers, like what Nintendo was saying just now. Smaller indie devs, smaller games that really don't make as much money, they get affected. These big AAA publishers, yeah, they don't get affected. They don't give a shit. They'll do whatever they want to do, no matter, regardless. But, the real concern is everybody else, and how it affects the industry elsewhere. So.
Hey, look, I'm totally on your side. I totally agree.
But don't worry, we're not going to accuse you of being a shill here. Don't worry.
I'm not a shill. I'm definitely pro Gamergate, and I think we get a fucking terrible bad rap in the media. As you've all seen. I'm sure you've all read the articles. We get a terrible bad rap. We're all misogynists, right?
Yep.
I know I am. I'm a super misogynist. I hate myself.
No, it's bullshit. It's fucking bullshit. But at the end of the day, I think we're going to get what we want. They're still going to market it to the consumer, and we're the consumer. And when GTA can make $1 billion in 3 days, literally $1 billion in 3 days, is it really going to affect our industry?
Well, we'll see. Obviously, we can't predict the future. I mean, I'd like to think I could.
Well, I agree. I think very much it's going to affect the industry, and it already has. Again, this is it's either stifling, which is the very minimal risk that we're putting out there, or it could completely stagnate the entire industry outside of a few standalone franchises that are so vastly popular, it doesn't matter what they do. You're not going to stop the Call of Duties. You're right. You're not going to stop the GTAs. You're right. You're not going to stop those AAA developers with their major franchises. But look at what's happening to Mirror's Edge 2. Who's directly involved in the development now?
Yeah, fucking Anita. I hate that bitch.
Right, and that's the thing. We're going to lose titles that are at that level, that are mid-grade to low-grade, that just have enough publicity that we're going to hear about them, and we're going to lose those. Over time, if this thing continues to grow, we will lose those. So is it going to affect the industry? Abso-freaking-lutely. But we're not going to lose those titles you keep bringing up. I completely agree with you on that point. But we will lose good games due to some developers saying, you know what, I kind of like ethics in journalism. I kind of like it when a guy gives me a legitimate score on Metacritic instead of, pay this guy this much money to stop them from getting their bonuses. I mean...
And let's expand on that. Actually, there was a recent female dev interview on Bro Team Pill where mid-interview she was mentioning that, developers have all these ideas. They have so many ideas, and the main concern is how they can develop it, the logistics in it. And once they develop it, once they put all these hours, all this stress, everything into developing this game, there's that last piece after all this energy and effort they put in where, the money comes in and looks at the game, and then they say, no, we want you to do this, even though it's counter to what the developers want. And guess who is talking there? It's not just the money, it's shareholders, it's everybody on the outside that's telling them to change these games. It's not the developer necessarily.
The perfect example of that is the recent Tekken example. Look, creating a character in Tekken and creating moves for Tekken, it's not like that's happened in a second. They spent hours and hours in development to create that character and create that woman, and then all these SGWs were like, no, ban her from Tekken, ban that character. It wasn't just it wasn't oh, we came up with this in a day. That's hundreds of hours of development work that made that character.
There's something about that too. If you think about the, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
Yes.
I was following the developer, and if this sparks off and this steps up, or if this spreads throughout Japanese developers, his reply to and I'm trying to remember what the group was that some website complained about it. His reply to the people on the website was like, "Fine, you don't like it, I'll make you something else." But the character that he described in his tweet was like a caricature of like a female roided white supremacist. Like he turned around and said she's going to be like a pro wrestling, muscle bound, buzz cut. You'll love her. And it's like as if he was saying, it's like, look, you white supremacist bastards, you want this? Fine, this is what you're going to get. And it's like the most ironic thing because it's like, it wasn't our side, it wasn't Gamergate saying this. Gamergate looked at it and said, yeah, we love this character is awesome. It was the anti-Gamergate that basically attacked this Japanese developer, and this Japanese developer's response was, okay, you white supremacist assholes, here's your white supremacist character that you're going to love.
Yeah. Well, I always used to play Ling Zhao in Tekken anyways.
But, it's an issue. It's definitely an issue. There's a point where criticism just simply goes too far. It's like, however well-intentioned, there's a point where it has real effects that reflect beyond what your intent of the criticism was. And unfortunately, what we're seeing now is a bit of a backlash against these people. Finally, there's been this has been happening in the sci-fi industry. It's been happening in the comic book industry. From what I've been reading, it's been happening in the fantasy book industry. There's just this whole whack of feminist or radical feminist critics, I should say, and social justice warriors who are just saying, listen, you need more women in your novels. And it's just like, why? Give me a good reason.
No, Gamergate is actually a proxy war. Like, I don't know if a lot of people realize this, but it is a proxy war. Like, we're finally the ones to stand up and be like, no, you don't take away our games. Don't be our thought police.
There's something people keep.
Okay, go ahead, David. I'm sorry.
When you bring up the comic book thing is really important to me because like I have several friends that are into comic books, and they are like full-blown SJW, which for me, like I want to enjoy Kamala Khan because it's a well-written story. I want to enjoy Kamala Khan because of, the youth of the character and her,
I used
not
to
just
love
because
Gen 13.
Gen
13 used to be my favorite.
it's so like I want to enjoy the character unselfconsciously because the character's well written, but then they start throwing in all this thing. It's like, oh, she's really important because she's, like a Pakistani American, and I'm sitting there scratching my head and I'm thinking to myself, well, here's the thing, the indie comic, like the whole entire indie comic subculture, thrived off giving to people the diversity that mainstream comics wouldn't give. So the diversity that was missing, or the alleged diversity that was missing from DC, that was missing from Marvel, you can get that from your indie comics, and you can get that from overseas comics. You can get that from French comics. Like the whole European comic scene has like a whole different etiquette to it. Japanese manga has a whole different etiquette to it. So you weren't suffering. You had places you can go to get your diversity. But now what's ended up happening is because these main companies are now suddenly embracing diversity, people are forgetting that you had this independent comic book scene that gave you that. They're forgetting that there were foreign comics that gave you that. And this is what I don't want to see happen with the indie video games. Indie video games gave you what was missing from the AAA titles, because AAA was for mass appeal, and indie basically was for you to be experimental and do like cool stuff. Well, indie was basically our minor league.
Is just appealing to mass appeal. That's what AAA does.
Yeah, it's going with safe models. That's exactly what AAA is. It's all about being safe.
Did any of you play Papers, Please?
Yes.
Jesus.
Oh my God.
Go.
That is the perfect example. Like, yeah, like you can make a game, just make your own game, and like, oh my God, that game is awesome.
I've been arguing for this from the beginning. Like,
it's funny that
aspect.
You'd figure SJWs would love this game because this game puts you in that moral quandary. It's like, you are in control over the lives of all these people trying to get into your country.
Right.
And if you turn them away, they're going to die. But at the same time, if you keep bringing in the downtrodden, you and your family's going to suffer.
It's a huge comment on immigration. That's a huge social justice issue right now.
Yeah, but see, they
It's
don't
so
want to note
creepy.
that. They want to note that there's body scans in it and that, there could be some sexualization in it. But back to the comic book issue, because I think this is very important. I'm a huge Marvel fan, and I was having a conversation with someone on the female Thor, and she was extremely excited for this character change. And what I don't think a lot of them understood, and what I tried to convey to her, is that it's a cop-out. For Marvel, it's a cop-out because they can simply change a character that's been there through, this mythos that's even outside of their control, and they get to change it in such a simple and easy way, rather than writing in a new, changed, original character, from the Asgardian mythos. They instead just put a different costume on Thor. You're just literally changing a gender, and that's it. And for some reason, that
Anita Sarkeesian would hate that character.
Yeah, see, here's the thing with the latest comic book changes. It's like, just like you were saying, it's like, they just changed the shallow version of it. And we don't give a shit if you change the gender. We don't care if you change if they're disabled or not, or if they have a mental disability or something else, or if they're black or white. We don't give a shit. Just give some context. Like, give a storyline.
Stop
some
internalizing the patriarchy.
Just like give some background, give some substance to this character. Try to hide the fact that all is going on right now is you're just trying to give credence to this one sect of people that want these changes.
You've totally internalized the patriarchy.
And the sad thing is they can walk away from it. And whereas we have to endure our hobby being changed drastically. In terms of comic books, it's already happening. People are now attacking Tony freaking Stark to be less sexualized and be less of a playboy because it only reinforces ideas of the patriarchy and what a man's man should be. And this is not what a man's man should be. And it's funny enough that they're so far off of what the core idea is behind each character that it's just so blatantly obvious to the actual person who's into these hobbies.
Whoa, they don't get that we spend thousands of hours and literally thousands of dollars. Like, this is our hobby. We spend thousands of dollars and thousands of hours, and this is what we love.
I understand you have to leave right away, Jen.
Yeah, what is this shilling? I've never fully understood the concept of shilling. What is shilling?
I want to tell the view.
I've never even used the term, actually, personally, but...
If you want to use the... If you want
Watch
to
Monday
let the
Night
listeners know your Twitter account, your Twitter account or anything that you
well, if you want to hear my bullshit, you can check out Twitter at Jen of Hardwire, JENN of Hardwire. I really, a lot of the times, I don't care. If you care for my opinion, then go ahead and follow it. I don't give a
Stop
shit.
internalizing misogyny.
I'm an average Gamergate supporter. I'm not any better than any of you guys. There, that's what I'm saying.
And see, and that's what I already like about you. One, you're cute, and two, you're a badass and saying, I don't care. I'm a nobody along with everyone else. Thank God. Thank
All right,
God
guys.
we have one.
I'll see you guys later.
Can we actually talk about this though? Like, literally, everyone who's a real gamer, we spend thousands of hours, thousands of dollars, and this is our hobby, and this is a thing we love. How dare you call me misogynist?
Well, the sad thing is, again, it's once they make these changes, they can step away from those thousands of hours because they don't have that. They can say, oh, change this, change this, change this, get rid of this, get rid of this, get rid of this, and some people will appease them. Eventually, it's just going to happen. Some people will start appeasing them to the point where they have nothing, and then when they walk away and go to the next forum that has a lot of publicity, that person's left with a ramshack nothing. And that's what's sad is you turn around and you look at BioShock Infinite, regardless if you like the game or not, they viewed her as a subset character, as a sidekick, rather than an extremely powerful person who still can't control her own abilities. They don't
Same
look
with
at
The
her.
Last of Us. Same with The Last of Us, which is one of the best games ever made. Like,
Well, here's the
probably
thing.
the best game ever made.
Here's the thing. I know I've tooted this horn before, but I keep having to drive this point home because I want people to understand this. This exact same moralizing stuff happened to comics in the 1950s with the Comics
Yes.
Code Authority. And that set back comics for decades. it didn't start to recover for 30 years. Oh, I don't want that to happen again, quite frankly.
No, it's crazy because never in my life would I feel I'm on the side of the crazy right-wing people. But I am, like Breitbart. Like, I would never in a million years be like, oh, Breitbart, I agree with that article. Like, I'm liberal, I'm pro-feminism, but now you've been attacking me as a gamer. Go fuck yourself. Like,
Well,
Yeah. Well done. Well done.
yeah.
I just want to cut in. I'm gonna go.
Alright.
So it's nice talking to everyone. I'll be back later on if you guys do another stream or if you guys want to chat. I'm always here. You can follow me on Twitter or whatever the hell. I don't really care. But thanks for having me on. I'm glad we
go
got
fuck
to talk
yourself.
about.
Oh, come on.
No, that's a joke.
That's cool, man. Thanks everyone, and yeah, it was nice talking to you all.
It was nice
Take care.
talking to you too, bud.
It's nice talking to you too. Alright, so what I want to do is I want to read through this Aliens Colonial Marines review. And I want to hear your guys' thoughts on this. We'll do possibly one more of these after this, and then we'll call it a night. But just this purpose of this stream is to analyze game reviews and see if there's a systemic problem with game reviews and what we can do to fix them. So here we go. I'm just continuing from the paragraph that I left off of. More than 6 years later, Aliens Colonial Marines has finally arrived, allowing us to see whether the gang from Piano, Texas could take one of gaming's most aped intellectual properties and deliver an experience that does the feature films justice. The first hurdle in this Herculean task is to satisfy the Alien fanbase. Colonial Marines is billed as an official piece of series canon, and I'm happy to report that Gearbox has crafted a world that more than lives up to the hype. It's dripping with fan service in the form of constant reference, recreation, and respect for the source material that's easily the best gaming representation of the franchise to date. So my observation is, this reads like this guy didn't have time to play the game, so he read the press release and made shit up.
It sounds like that's from Space Quest.
This is Aliens Colonial Marines. But
No, you ever play Space Quest? Sounds like it.
no, I've never.
It's like King's
You'll
Quest.
visit familiar places, make use of all the equipment you'd expect, see a few old friends, and square off with a whole mess of uglies you might recall from childhood nightmares. I won't spoil too much here in terms of story, but suffice it to say that if you've ever watched an alien film and gone, that was effing rad, chances are you'll get an opportunity to experience the epicness at some point in the campaign. Of course, staying true to the source wasn't the only potential stumbling block. All those front-loading, flame-throwing moments needed to be fun, too. And for the most part, Gearbox knocked it out like a cranky queen on the wrong side of an airlock. From gunplay to co-op-friendly design, the core mechanics are largely spot on. But more importantly, the various objectives do an incredible job of mixing it up. You'll run and gun, make daring stands against waves of xenomorphs, rescue your fellow Marines, find yourself forced to run away like a willow weenie, and much more. While the action falls a bit short of the blend of first-person shooter and survival horror I was hoping for, it's all fairly well-paced, thanks to some excellent level design and solid alien AI.
Yep.
Ah.
And here's the textbook problem of gaming journalism and collusion. Holy shit, could that not sound like the game of all years? Like, seriously, it sounds like the next Shadow of Mordor. Like, it sounds like the next, GTA 5. It sounds like the next game that's going to make $1 billion on release. And it was the worst piece of shit to ever represent one of the most masterfully built science fiction ideas ever produced.
Was that guy paid for the review?
Oh, of course, he's a writer for the site. He's the chief editor. But I don't think he was paid off by Gearbox. But it reads like a press release, and that's one of the things that a lot of people have against game journalists nowadays. It's a lot of their articles and stuff are just read like rewritten press releases, and this review is unfortunately one of the major symbols of that.
Yeah.
So let's continue the reading. The visuals are subpar in places, but the overall aesthetic makes creeping through the shadowy, blood-soaked wreckage with a group of Marines a real nail-biter. While the core soldier Xeno should probably figure out that ramming bullets with their face isn't the best strategy, Gearbox's other baddies offer up a great deal of variety. I think there's like a total of 3 enemies in the game, but okay.
Wait, my face isn't the best way to stop bullets?
Yeah, apparently he made this comment after he complimented the excellent alien AI too, so. This sets up some dreadful moments of anticipation, fearsome firefights, and even a few harrowing escapes, making Colonial Marines campaign an intense experience that's sure to appeal to franchise buffs and shooter fans alike. Sure, you've got some definite dents in the hull here, such as the occasionally oblivious squad-mate AI, the training wheel cover system, and the woefully hinted cinematics, but the hits far outweigh the misfires. Oh, here's the kicker. The main show offers a 4-player co-op experience that's a significant step forward from the storytelling in Borderlands.
Whatever. I mean, look, there's always been a problem with fanboy media, and I just think it's a growing pain for games media. Like movie media went through this, and now game media is finally going through it.
Yeah, but they've been growing for 30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's more of a more than just a we finally have reached that point. I think it's to the next level of it's such a level of corruption and collusion that it really is the idea of having to burn it down to build it back up. Because there's no way you can salvage a lot of this. It's so bad that it has to be taken down. And that's the thing, is they're fighting every single inch and every single avenue without any recourse, and they don't care. Like, that's the sad thing, and the scary thing is they don't care how they do it. It's just who they do it to. And I've never known journalism to be aggressive in defending itself. It's always been reactionary. And if someone makes an off-cuff remark, it seems like you're spitting in their face. And what's even crazier is you take Leah Alexander, for example. She says some of the most ludicrous things to the following of, even her own. And she gets upset when people make any rebuttal to it. Even like a very genuine, considered rebuttal of, why are you saying this? Can we talk about it? It's almost like you're spitting on her mother's grave. It really is.
It's funny, because I just got asked earlier tonight, I got asked to fuck, marry, kill. Zoe Quinn, Brianna Wu, and Leah Alexander.
What?
Fuck, marry, kill? Do you know that game?
No.
It's a game where you choose to marry one person, kill the other person, and sleep with the other person.
And I got Zoe Quinn, Brianna Wu, and Leah Alexander.
Okay, let's dissect that for a second. Zoe Quinn, Leah Alexander, and who?
Brianna Wu.
Let's not go in. Let's not go in.
Fuck, marry, kill.
I don't even know. I don't even want to get into it, because if I say anything, it's going to be...
have to get into that.
If we say anything on this stream, it's going to be used as evidence against us, so I'd rather not.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that's fine.
And that's another thing that I want to say is...
I got asked that question earlier tonight, is all.
Oh, no, that's fine. I think it's funny, though, that it's really come down to the last-ditch effort from all of the people, against Gamergate. Anti, whatever you want to claim them as. They really, really are at their last wit's end. They're fighting with every bit that's left. And the only remnants really is the infighting. And if Gamergate can really chop that down in the slower parts of December and the slower holidays, it would completely destroy a lot of their counter-arguments.
I mean, that is really the thing. That's the key, is like anti-Gamergate will destroy itself. Like, they say we root out people who don't believe in, but we don't really, we're just a bunch of people who believe in freedom, and like at the end of the day, they're going to kill themselves because they're like, you don't believe this version of feminism,
Mm-hmm. And that's the funny thing, is I feel bad, because I can't even claim the...
Do you not agree with that, though?
No, I do, and I want to even take this to the point, because you yourself, you said you're liberal and that you're a feminist. And what's sad is you have to describe what kind of feminist now, because there's an immediate connotation in my mind when you say that of, wow, he hates men. And it's just a joke, obviously, because you don't, but that's what a lot of them do. And that's what a lot of them do, is it feels like they're out to attack the other side rather than establishing this good dialogue and this clear-cut set of goals. And Oliver Campbell made a great point of explaining this. If a side does not have the set of goals, it really is implied...
keep talking.
Sorry.
It really is implied that there is no end game for them. That if you give them an inch, they're going to take 5 miles.
Well, so partly it's because we're gamers, so we know that like you need some sort of qualification for winning, right? There is a winning at the end of the day because we're gamers, right? No. Hello?
No, you're right.
Oh yeah. Oh, sorry. Everything stopped for a second. The other thing is the other side. They just want to like there's just so much hate on the other side. There's so much hate of us and generalizations about who we are. And like, look, I'm sorry. Just because I play GTA, like I said originally, just because I play GTA and I have the option to kill prostitutes doesn't make me a misogynist. And don't call me misogynist because I play a game where I have the option to kill a prostitute. I really believe Anita Sarkeesian has killed more prostitutes in games than I ever have. I really believe that.
Actually, that's probably true. It's funny where we're at, but let's just finish with this Colonial Marines review, and we could discuss that because it really highlights some of the systemic problems. All things considered, Colonial Marines is a consistently solid, occasionally spectacular shooter that does more than enough to honor the Alien name. It was going to be a tough task from the onset, but despite a ton of potential pitfalls for the talented team at Gearbox, they've gone a long way toward reminding us that, for folks who love the craft of building great games, the best challenges only seem impossible. Here's the summary. Like most successful license-based games, Aliens Colonial Marines is much more than a loving homage. It serves as one of the most robust, story-driven co-op experiences to date. The concept definitely has room to grow, but as maiden voyages go, Colonial Marines is a clear winner. The good, a modern Alien game that does more than avoid being total crap. The bad, AI teammates that seem to forget the alien menace must be obliterated. The ugly, the cutscenes. Love ya, mean it guys, but next time can you get Halo 4 CG Squad? Oh my god.
Are you shitting me?
9 out of 10.
Are you shitting me?
I am not shitting you. Brandon Justice. That's the guy who wrote it. This is why we need names on the Metacritic reviews.
Hashtag full Macintosh.
Here's the sad thing is that 343 as a studio does not do a good job in game. I think they develop a very beautiful game. I think the campaigns are very in depth. They go to another level of storytelling, but the mechanics are exactly what AAA development's become. It's become Call of Halo now. It's not what Halo used to be. It's not so generic that every player can pick it up, and it's a simple measure of how much have you BR fought to get it going. And here's the real sad thing.
The entire game, Destiny, was based on the Halo mentality, right?
Right. And
that anyone can pick it up and just do whatever they want to, anyone can pick it up.
Yeah, what were you about to say? What were you about to say?
I'm sorry I made you lose your thought. I'm sorry.
No, my mic keeps cutting in and out. You're fine. If you read the majority of the article, it really sounds like this game is at least something that has a lot of prospect, that has a lot of potential, and when you see it, it's probably the biggest lie that's been sold to a lot of fandoms out there. I mean, there's a lot of people who follow the Aliens franchise even now today, and if they played this, it was probably the most disappointing thing that they could have ever endured, other than, some of the later movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to load up one more review, because this is really hilarious. The Leisure Suit Larry Reloaded review.
Oh my god! I haven't played Leisure Suit Larry since I was, for 10 years, or 15 years. When's the last time Leisure Suit Larry was relevant?
It just got re-released, actually, last year.
Oh, did it?
Yeah. But here's the thing. Someone linked me a review of Transistor by this guy named Tom Chick. And they said it was a bad review, and I read it, and I was like, no, the guy actually defends his opinions. He backs it up. He doesn't use this game as a token whipping boy. He uses the full range of his review scales. Now, here's an example of a review that uses Leisure Suit Larry as a token whipping boy to espouse, to soapbox, basically. So, here we go.
But Larry was made for a target audience.
Yes, but here's the thing. Here, listen to this.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. Let's start with the list, because that's all the internet is comprised of these days. Time was you couldn't move for knobs and tits, and now it's all top 10 cats wearing tiny hats. About 4,010,000 results. Here are 10 things the world doesn't need any more of. 1. Kickstarter campaigns. 2. Black Eyed Peas songs. 3. War. 4. New iterations of Glade plugin. 5. Racism. 6. Poverty. 7. Rory McGrath. 8. Articles containing the phrase Royal Baby. 9. Leisure Suit Larry games. 10. Lists. You can already see the problem with this review from the very beginning. It's not even talking about
Patreons. He forgot Patreons.
No. I'm reading the review itself, sir. But
no, I know.
You can already see the problem with this review from the very beginning.
Yes,
it's not mentioning the game at all, except on the list, and it's already going into things in such a slanted manner that it's impossible to take the rest of it seriously already. Of course, not everyone will agree with this list. Perhaps you're a big Rory McGrath fan, or a racist. Maybe you like being told to pump it up, shut it down, and go out and smash it by will.i.am. Or perhaps you're one of the 14,081 people who contributed to the Kickstarter campaign for Leisure Suit Larry Reloaded. That's 14,801 people who think that the world really needs is a remake of a 26-year-old point-and-click adventure about jagging. Oh, God. There's a lot to unpack there.
He just called me a racist for not agreeing with this list.
Exactly. That's well, I wouldn't say necessarily that, but that's the problem right there, is that if you don't agree, obviously something's wrong with you. It's not that you can't just not agree. Inherently, there's something wrong with you. You don't agree with me? What I say is righteous. It's covenant worthy. I mean, it's absolutely insane.
Yeah. Just like the original, this game is set in the unamusingly named gambling town of Lost Wages, and just like the original, it is packed with references to bad breath and blow-up dolls. If you think that sounds hilarious, wait till you see the lampshade shaped like a penis. Playing the game involves trawling around a number of tedious locations, collecting random objects for obscure purposes. A wry narrator comments on everything, endlessly, which is actually quite useful for the many instances where Larry is performing an action no one has bothered to animate. Solving puzzles involves clicking on everything in sight and revisiting the same places many times over until new items arbitrarily appear. Now, that is actually a good paragraph. That actually says something about the game.
The thing is, it was a product of its fucking time. That's when, LucasArts games were popular, that's when King Quest was popular, that's when Space Quest was popular. It's a product of its fucking time.
No. What I'm addressing here is that actually that last paragraph, it started at playing the game.
No, I understand what you're saying, but also, wasn't the game a product of its time? All of his complaints don't make sense if you realize the game was made back when people were making those games all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same people who complain about frame rate issues during heavy action in Mortal Kombat, like the original SNES and stuff like that. It's ludicrous. For its time, it was a masterpiece.
Yeah, I'm just saying, Leisure Suit Larry was a commentary on the other adventure games that were coming out at the time.
Absolutely. And yeah, one of my friends played it for me for the first time. I never got to see it, and still to this day, it held up extremely well. Made me laugh in instances, and it did a great job at being satire of King's Quest. Something like that. And that's the thing. Exactly.
Yes. If you think that sounds dull, wait till you've spent an hour grinding away on the blackjack machine. Larry needs cash to pay taxi fares, buy drinks, and so on, and the only way to earn it is by gambling. Unless you plan to spend the rest of your life doing this, it's best to save after every win and reload after every loss. To make the process more bearable, I suggest turning the sound down and putting something more interesting on in the background. I got through an entire Archer's Omnibus. All this heart-stopping action is punctuated by text-based conversations with the game's female characters. Just like old times, the defense is that the joke is on Larry. He's constantly exposed as a buffoon, and therefore it's okay that all the women are sexist stereotypes with nothing intelligent or interesting to say, and either prostitutes or people offering sex in exchange for material goods, which is a bit like punching someone in the face, then explaining that it's okay because their fly is undone. Ha! Oh my god.
Have you ever heard of Guybrush Threepwood? Literally. He's the butt of every joke in the game. It's.
Yeah. But I think the main point I have against that paragraph was the fact that he's making authoritarian statements. If you like this, you're sexist. For further evidence of the game's attitude to women, try playing the Angry Broads arcade machine in the convenience store, which features pigs in dresses waving feminist placards. Except you can't, because the narrator informs us that the machine is stuck in demo mode, i.e., no one bothered to make the minigame, probably too busy laughing at their own joke. Huh.
So then he questions the productivity of the team. You know.
It's all a joke about the time, though. Do you remember? I used to have to fill out a
No.
fucking book to like climb up a wall in King's Quest. Like,
Here's the thing, dude. The remaster version added a lot of new material.
oh, I have no idea. I don't know anything about that.
So just so you know. But it's really hard to get offended by any of this. Protesting that a Leisure Suit Larry game is sexist is like complaining that a portrait drawn by a 6-year-old is unflattering. Besides, better save that ire up for the racism. Guess what, everyone? The black character in this game is a pimp. Meanwhile, the Asian character runs the convenience store. He sells condoms in a variety of sizes, including banana and African banana. Jesus effing Christ, what's next? A puzzle that must be solved by using blackface disguise to enter a rap studio? Oh wait, that was Leisure Suit Larry 5.
You know what's really funny is Leisure Suit Larry is someone who really doesn't have a chance of getting with all these women, and that you have to do an extreme amount of items to complete before you can even get with them. And that's the whole satire of it all, is that they're actually making fun and making light of these stereotypes.
Mm-hmm. Of course, there will be people out there who don't give a toss about the racism and sexism, perhaps even 14,081 people. But it's hard to imagine that all of them wanted nothing more from this remake than better graphics. There are no original ideas here, no new twists, not even any decent jokes. A better title would be Leisure Suit Larry Rehashed. Everything about this game feels outdated, from the gameplay to the attitude to the idea that anyone that still uses breath spray. Backtracking and blackjack grinding might have been acceptable in the 80s, but things have moved on. There's a fine line between retro remake and reheated old tat, and you've probably crossed it if the most cutting-edge thing in your game is an Angry Birds parody. The world did not need this Leisure Suit Larry game, and it does not need any more. With that in mind, here's a new idea. Kickstopper campaigns. We'll all club together to pay the likes of Rory McGrath, Will.i.am, and Nigel Farage to stop inflicting their nonsense on us. Let's start with Replay Games, the creators of Leisure Suit Larry Reloaded. All I need is 14,080 backers. Who's in? 2 out of 10. Ah, that was fun.
I mean, that review, it's like, look, it's a nostalgia factor. It's a product of its time. Like, I don't know anyone who would like try to think it's a great game. You're right, it's not a great game, but it's a nostalgia thing.
God, that review was cancerous. No, you're right. It's not necessarily that. It's like the Master Chief Collection. It's for those who enjoyed the Halo franchise and wanted to see it in what light that today could produce. And it actually took off into an entirely new direction, rehashing and relighting something for a generation that had never seen it before. I mean, the remakes are fine. It has a nostalgia factor for those, so it has a solid market and and solid demographic off the bat. But at the same time, you're giving yourself a broader audience to appeal to because gaming has grown. More people are gamers than there ever have been. And what's really sad is this person can't even look beyond the satire of the situation. It's kind of like someone who looks at Saturday Night Live's commentary and takes it as real political, commentary. It goes to Jon Stewart's The Daily Show and really watches it for the news, and then goes to Stephen Colbert and watches the interviews and thinks it's dead on accurate and takes it to church. I mean, it is ludicrous to take Leisure Suit Larry to such a level of criticism. Because as soon as you look at it, there's the option to jerk off in one of the games, and right off the bat, that causes you to lose. Could you not see this game is purely built on the premise of being a comedic satire, just in your face, making fun of all the things that we all know, not necessarily to be true, but we all think of from time to time?
No, Leisure Suit Larry was always a parody game. And I see, to me, the funniest part of the review, when it's like, and the Asian shop owner. It's like, have you never watched The Simpsons? Who runs the shop in The Simpsons?
The Indian. Yeah.
They did the same fucking shit, It was a parody of it. It was to try to make a light of it. They weren't saying this should be okay. They were making a joke about that, like, this isn't okay.
Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna have to go in half an hour. So we should probably discuss, is the problem with game reviews systemic? Is there a systemic problem that can be addressed? Is the problem Metacritic? Is the problem scores? Discuss.
This will be my last comment because I have to go, so I'll just kind of ask for the floor for just a tad bit.
Mm-hmm. Wait. Well, let me say my piece first then, because my piece is short. I don't think this is a systemic problem. I think there's a problem with certain reviewers that want to insert politics into the reviews. But I think for the most part, people, they're like, is this game fun or not? Great. Love that. But when you start to insert, like, oh, it entrenches the patriarchy, go fuck yourself.
Nintendo?
That's my comment.
Okay.
Sorry.
I just wanted to make sure. No, I just wanted to make sure that you were done. So
I'm done.
no,
That's fine.
yeah, I do not think it's a systemic problem. I agree on a lot of points that that Samus has made. Here's the big issue: is that beyond political commentary, beyond the political agenda being inserted, it's the idea that if you can damage it enough, if you can change it enough, and cripple it where it has to listen to you, that you can get your agenda built to full fruition, not just small bits and pieces, because now already small bits and pieces are being injected into the gaming scene, and that's what's sad, and that we finally recognize that as a good thing, and that we're trying to change it back to it's the artist and what they want and their integrity alone that stands on its own 2 feet. Now, here's the real problem, is that they actually have bottlenecked part of the industry. They have the power to do so, and if they can continue to garner that power, that's where the real issue lies. So gaming journalism, everyone tries to write it off as no one takes it seriously. Well, those who inherently don't take it seriously don't take it seriously. Those who know what Kotaku is don't. People who are just starting from the outside looking in, their reputation, and their impression of gaming is completely damaged from the word go if they use one of these venues to look at a game. And that's the problem, is that when gaming journalism intends to bottleneck the industry or intends to bottleneck anything and tries to funnel all information through it, that's the problem. And Total Biscuit and a lot of the YouTubers are alleviating that pressure that from the outside looking in, they can finally get a legitimate criticism of games. So no, it's not a systemic problem whatsoever. Metacritic needs to be reformed. I'm not necessarily against scores. But if score's going to be done, there needs to be a new system. I'm not the one to give you the perfect system. No single human being on this planet can do that. But we need to start from those who are successful as critics, those who are successful at understanding and...
Can I stop you for 1 second? Did you see Total Biscuit's tweet today?
No.
I solved the problem with killing women and prostitutes in GTA. I just don't kill them.
Yep. And that's the thing that... It's going to have to take time because AAA development has already stuck its foot so far up, Metacritic's ass that it's walking around with it with a shoe. It's one of the basis for, providing bonus checks to those who are in development. And that's what's sad, is that it's the problem Steve Jobs addressed, and I'm not sure he wasn't the first one to ever bring it up, but at the point in a company or in the point in an industry's life where PR has taken over the development aspect and continues to grow beyond development's control is when you're going to see a industry stall out, become bland, to be less innovative, and it's really just an idea now of innovation for innovation's sake rather than forced innovation. What made Super Nintendo so good, what made all the older consoles so good, was that they were forced to innovate in areas that they'd never thought of before. And now because...
Wait, I need to stop you there. Do you know Nintendo used to have a really big, like a lot of rules about games? That's why you could have blown up the hamster mini mansion. They had a lot
they
of
did
rules.
have the Nintendo seal of quality. Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Right.
They actually did.
Right. So there's that as well, and there's still rules today, and there's a lot of things that the AAA industry has. It's just not on the books. There's no official stamp now. It's more of what is safe and what isn't. But here's where the real problem lies. If we're going to have a system, it needs to be something that is tried, true, and that the consumer understands and backs. It doesn't need to be the Dorito Pope putting out his Mountain Dew edict every once in a while. It doesn't need to be, Kotaku telling me why I'm a terrible person because I'm a white male. It doesn't need to be Polygon's double score. That's fine if
Wait,
you
wait,
want
you
it.
haven't checked your privilege?
No, I haven't checked my privilege.
I'm sure you're a shitlord.
Yeah. All right. One last thing before I go. No, it's not systemic in the least. The problem needs to become the reform. What are we going to do with it once it burns to the ground? Because this is not a sustainable system that's in place. We need a catalyst even more with Gamergate and destroy it even faster with Gamergate so we can start anew. Gawker's already starting to fall apart. They're pulling PR stunts of, oh, we went from 1 to 7, so we're more ethical. That's not going to fly. You know, Polygon suffered. Kotaku has suffered. The clickbait's not working anymore. People are opening their eyes and seeing the collusion and corruption. And once we burn it to the ground, there needs to be a positive agenda that Gamergate can push instead of we're against corruption. It needs to be we're for what? We're for more than just ethical standards. What else are we for? And I think that's something that we really, really need to think of.
In that mind, when you go about doing so, obviously any listeners here, support the websites that you feel are doing a good job. Like, just do that. TechRaptor, you could go to 2-dash.com, Shameless Shill. You could go to any gaming website that you feel is doing a good job. Support them.
Right.
They need the support.
Absolutely.
They need your clicks,
And
obviously.
exactly. And that's the thing is, this is just my last shill moment. If you guys want to follow me at the Real Jack Boss on Twitter, I'll try to provide you with websites as much as possible and answer as many questions to my knowledge on the subject matter at hand. And I think that's a big thing is if we continue to support one another and in the community, for those who actually stand for ethics and morality and journalism, that's when we're going to start to succeed. The infighting has to stop. And I know it has to stop with me as well because, you know, me and King of Pole, I absolutely hate him. But I'm going to shut that down just because it's not providing us with any avenue for getting better. So with that said, I really appreciate the interview, Salt. It was nice meeting every single one of you. And I'll talk to you guys later.
Yeah.
And
No, you're right, dude. I agree with you. You're awesome.
so I'm going to end this now. It was nice talking to you, Samus.
See?
It was nice talking to you, and I don't know who Prank was, but it was nice having you on regardless, even if you didn't say a thing. But to all my listeners, go to 2-dash.com, check out our recent gaming reviews of Lou No City and Elegy for a Dead World. Check out my YouTube channel, Uncut_Salt. Follow me at Thoughtful_Salt. And you, Samus, if you have a Twitter account.
I don't know how to make an avatar on Hangouts. Like, it always films me.
Do you have a Twitter account that you want to?
I do. It's Gamergator with a 0.
All right.
Gamergate 0R.
There we go. And
Yeah.
thank you all for listening, everybody, and thank you for being on. And I shall have a good night.